Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TechAQUA 2022. My name is Marc Blouin. I am with Proline Fittings and I'm helping organize this streaming event. Before we begin, I would like to ask you to please like, share, subscribe, do all of the social media things. You've been on the internet long enough, you know what to do, and we appreciate your support. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the host and MC for today's activities, Mr. Justin Giroux.
Hey, hello, Justin. Everyone. Hey, Mark. I'm Justin Giroux, and this is TechAQUA, a World Water Day event. I'm actually coming to you live from my hotel room at the Clean and Safe Drinking Water Workshop in Gander, Newfoundland. So we are truly coast to coast today. The idea for World Water Day goes back 30 years to 1992, when the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution by which the 22nd of March of each year was declared World Water Day, to be observed starting in 1993.
It restarted the video and it cut you off. And
World Water Day celebrates water and raises awareness of the 2.2 billion people living without access to safe water. It is about taking action to tackle the global water crisis and support the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation for all by 2030. The global water crisis does not start and stop with developing nations. It infiltrates everywhere, including Canada. And that is the focus of the Clean Water Education Foundation, protecting Canadian water resources through education and training. While much work has been done with First Nations communities, there are still 36 long-term drinking water advisories active in First Nations communities across Canada. Approximately 50% of households in Canada still have high-capacity, high-flow toilets. We have road salt entering our aquifers, petroleum products leaking from underground storage tanks, nitrates from the overuse of chemical fertilizers or manure on farmland, excessive applications of chemical pesticides, leaching of fluids from landfills and dump sites, and lead in our piping systems. We have inflow and infiltration burdening our wastewater treatment plants. We have lots of work to accomplish as a community and as stewards of water. That's what today is about. It's about education, training, conservation, protection. Last year, through the inaugural TechAQUA event, and other fundraising activities by the Clean Water Education Foundation, we were able to sponsor 15 primary and secondary school water test kits through the Safe Drinking Water Foundation, which educates the leaders of today and tomorrow about drinking water quality issues. The Clean Water Education Foundation sponsored the Water First internship program, which supports young Indigenous interns to become certified water treatment plant operators. Last year, TechAQUA delivered over 100 hours of on-the-job training. And that is an important fact, because without you all here today, learning something new, we wouldn't have our corporate sponsors. By simply being here and being present and being part of this event, you, operators, engineers, distributors, delegates, you're contributing to the protection of our most valuable resource, water. And that leads me to my next point. I encourage you to engage with us today via the live chat. If you have a comment or question, please do type it into the chat. If you have a question about a product or its application, step outside your comfort zone and type it into the chat. Even if you're a two-finger typer, you can still give a thumbs up. Because again, it's with your attendance and engagement that brings the corporate sponsorship. That allows us to invest in you and invest in Canadian water. Now is a good time as any to acknowledge our platinum sponsor this year. I'd like to give a very sincere thank you to Ford Meterbox. They made a very generous sponsorship of $3,000 to the Clean Water Education Foundation. And this marks the largest single donation to the foundation since its inception less than 2 years ago. So we have a fantastic lineup for you today, starting with a word from our government service agency sponsor, the Walkerton Clean Water Center. Then new to this year's event, we are hosting a water panel discussion on current water issues with water leaders from across Canada. Hopefully we get your synapses firing with critical thought, as we're then going to jump into our technical presentation from our platinum sponsor, 4MeterBox, followed by silver sponsors George Fisher Piping Systems Canada and Proline Fittings. You'll have to stick around right to the end, because we'll be making a draw for a $250 gift card of your choosing. Now remember, to be entered in the draw, you must be a registered guest. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so. You will find a link either on the LinkedIn or YouTube page where you're currently viewing. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Brian Bates, the CEO of the Walkerton Clean Water Center, to say a few words.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Happy World Water Day, and thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. As mentioned by Justin, I'm the CEO of the Walkerton Clean Water Center. I've been on the job now for about 3 weeks, taking over from Carl, our outgoing CEO. And the first thing I'd like to say is that we here at the Walkerton Clean Water Center are very proud to sponsor this great event on World Water Day, and the mission certainly aligns well with our mission here at the Walkerton Clean Water Center. For those of you that are not familiar with the center, we are an Ontario government agency located in Walkerton, Ontario. Of course, the location was selected because of the Walkerton drinking water tragedy several years ago. Our mandate here at the center is to help ensure safe drinking water for all Ontarians and First Nations through drinking water operator training and pilot work and support. It's very exciting times for us here at the center. We recently acquired some additional land right adjacent to the building you see behind me to help facilitate some of our growth. We've just recently acquired additional lab equipment to enhance our capabilities in the pilot world. And we've recently updated and refreshed our mandate with the Ontario government. And under this refreshed mandate, we will continue to support Ontario's drinking water systems through training, while also exploring how to further improve our already existing partnership with First Nations communities to ensure that they have the knowledge and experience necessary to produce clean, safe drinking water in all the First Nations communities. We're also working on creating some self-directed e-learning modules to be accessible for all Canadian water treatment professionals. And I should note that these e-learning modules will not replace our traditional face-to-face courses that we're well known for, but rather they'll be offered as alternatives to operators who cannot make it to scheduled classroom events, including those operators outside of our Ontario jurisdiction. And of course, the center will continue to offer our instructor-facilitated online courses via Teams and Zoom that became so vital during the pandemic lockdowns. So if you're interested in any of those courses, please reach out to us. And lastly, I'd like to mention a free resource that the center offers to all water professionals across the globe, and that is our Drinking Water Resource Library, or DWRL. DWRL is an online database of resources and web links providing information related to drinking water, and is accessible to anyone via our website at wcwc.ca under the Services tab. DWRL has a wide variety of articles and helpful papers on there, from subjects like harmful algae blooms to filtration techniques. The list goes on, and has been found quite useful to both new and seasoned operators alike. If you have any questions about our training offerings or pilot program or DWRL, our contact information can be found by clicking on the contact tab at wcwc.ca. I really hope you all enjoy the day, and thank you. Back over to you, Justin.
Hey, that was great. Thank you, Brian. Oh, you're muted, Mark.
We needed to have at least one of those moments, right? Where
Yes,
someone is muted, of course. So I think our guests are kind of slowly arriving. We might as well just start the conversation with who we have. So we'll transition to our panel now, I believe, Justin.
Yeah, we're definitely a little ahead of schedule, but that's good. So, because I think that this next topic is going to go on longer than expected.
You think so?
Do we have folks here already, Mark? Or
we do have folks here. So let me pull everybody in, and we will start our panel conversation.
Great. Okay.
And here we are.
Here we are. So it looks like we're missing one still, I think. Oh,
and there's Nicole.
There we go. There's Nicole. Okay, this is great. All right, thank you. I'll introduce everyone here. So this is brand new to this year's TechAQUA. It's only the second year running, but pretty excited for this new segment. So we're going to have a water panel discussion around conservation and protection. Really, we're going to dive into the key water issues that are sort of prevalent in today's socioeconomic landscape in Canada. So I'll start by introducing our panel guests. First, we have Z. Marcolin, General Manager of Utilities with the Regional District of North Okanagan. We have Nicole Hancock, the Executive Director of the Safe Drinking Water Foundation. And of course, we already met Brian Bates, CEO of the Walkerton Clean Water Center. And last up, we have Cassie Governor, excuse me if I pronounced that incorrectly, team lead for disaster recovery with the province of Alberta. Welcome, everybody. And I think, Cassie, you are muted currently. I can see, oh, you're not muted anymore. Nicole, muted. Okay, so I'm going to start the question for Nicole. And here we go. A 2014 RBC Canadian Water Attitude Study found that only 55% of Canadians between the ages of 18 and 34 knew where their drinking water came from. Why do you think the percentage of Canadians who know the source of their drinking water is quite low?
I think that people just don't really think about it. I mean, I grew up not, knowing very much about water, and I didn't know where the water came from out of my tap when I was growing up. When I lived in a rural town, was a first-year teacher, the water wasn't very good. It was yellowish brown, so I would put it through 2 pitcher-style filters. I'll put it through it twice, and I never really thought about health consequences. I was mostly just focused on the color and the smell and the taste. I think we just don't really think about it. It's like these days a lot of children don't really know where their food comes from. A lot of people don't know where their water comes from.
Very true. And I think you've done some work too with your foundation. And what have you found regarding young students' understanding of water in your work with the Safe Drinking Water Foundation?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Saskatoon, you might know that the South Saskatchewan River flows right through the middle of it. People talk about the west side and the east side of Saskatoon. And the thing is that that's the source of our drinking water, is the South Saskatchewan River. But when we held student action competitions, in some kindergarten to grade 8 schools, less than 5% of students could name the source of their drinking water. So I found that among children, as one could imagine, if 18 to 34, 35-year-olds, only about half of them know where their drinking water comes from. Among children, it's a much less percent. So I think that it's important to educate them about where their drinking water comes from.
Right. It's almost like it's just a foregone conclusion. You turn the tap on, water comes out. No questions asked.
And that makes it kind of like taken for granted, which also leads to people often not, realizing that that's not the case for everyone, like people in First Nations communities and rural communities.
Indeed. Okay. Thank you, Nicole. Does anybody else want to comment on that sort of topic? All right. I'm going to jump over to a supply chain question now. So this one is for you, Z. Over the past year and a half, we have experienced many supply chain issues across all sectors of the economy. Shipping container shortages, resin supply issues. We've had factory closures due to extreme weather. Of course, COVID-19 restrictions have been significant. High levels of demand, you name it. We've gone through compounding events that have impacted our supply chain and really exposed its weaknesses. And, we've never really talked about this from a public utility standpoint. So how have the supply chain and corresponding inflationary pressures impacted operations, and how significant are they?
Thanks, Justin. I should also mention I'm in BC for those of you that don't know where Regional District of North Okanagan is. We've been impacted through operations and in the construction world. So our biggest impact was last year we ran out of salt, and which is a big issue for us because it is one of our main treatment chemicals for to produce hypo. So we ended up getting bags of it as opposed to loads of it. We had a company that helped us out. So that did increase costs, but it did change the way we think about some of these treatment chemicals, especially. So we did have to take a look at what was really critical. So we store a lot more chemicals. We just did our annual quote for chemical costs, and we did have a major change. We switched to a Canadian supplier for salt, which was higher. So we were questioned at it at a higher level, of course. But when it comes to treatment chemicals, you just cannot run out. They're extremely critical. So it didn't go over too well, but there is an understanding as well. Nobody wants to go on a water quality or a boil water just because we ran out of chemicals. On a different note, we did look at all our equipment. We run 6 utilities. One's very large, and then we have 5 small ones. So the large one was pretty much, we already had, we had kind of unify all our equipment. So we have stuff on the shelf. For our small ones, we actually are purchasing a lot of extra equipment that are critical, that if they break down, they're older. So if they break down, we just don't have the 6 to 8 weeks lead time to get them in. So we are purchasing a lot of extra equipment for on the shelf. We're actually stocking a lot more consumables. So that has an impact, but once you do that, then you're a little bit more safe. We're constantly in discussions about how long it's going to take. So from a construction perspective, we were expecting higher prices this year. Luckily, we are getting fairly good prices from our local contractors, but we think some of them have stockpiled a bunch of equipment, which is nice for us. But the range in the tenders is insane. We haven't seen like 2-3 times difference. So we're expecting a big increase next year. But another major thing that we have been looking at for our construction is we're doing owner purchasing of equipment. So a number of years ago, we went from design one year, construct the next year, which has really assisted us because we can find out what is the big lead time for some of the equipment. So we actually have been purchasing really specialty equipment for construction next year. We did get caught on doing that for a UV system it was delivered incomplete and it was not checked. So if anybody plans to do that, I would say, so what we do now is we make sure that we get this equipment and we have somebody to come and certify that it is complete. So, and we also talk about warranty issues. So we are looking at long lead times for large specialty valves, generators, where we were trying to get generators in this year. We're planning them for next year. So those are the main things.
Wow. And you mentioned potentially running into a boil water situation if you didn't ran out of chemical, right? Did you get close, or how close did you get to that sort of scenario?
We
Or are you
did.
allowed to say?
I have excellent operators, and they scrambled, and they did find a supply of salt. Although because it was a bagged supply as opposed to shipment, it
Right.
did increase. So they're constantly looking out for this stuff. So we're very lucky here in Vernon for the quality of operators that we have.
Right. And so you're running like on-site hypo generation then with salt?
Yes, for our two in Greater Vernon Water, which is our largest utility, it's about 65,000 people, but a large agricultural base as well. I think by volume, we're the third largest utility in BC. We have two main sources, and both are hypo generation.
Gotcha. And so with the supply chain issues, did that sort of encourage you to carry more sort of backup full concentration bleach, or is that not really necessary?
No, for us, we just need the salt. So
Gotcha.
we generate it on
As long
site.
as you have it.
We're stockpiling salt.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I heard, going back to more supply chain concerns, that, I know that municipalities like to run tenders that, are for long term, say supply tenders for 3 to 5 years. And I'm coming from a manufacturing side and talking to our distributors that are bidding on these sort of supply contracts, or they're scratching their head. They have no idea how to bid these kinds of tenders, because the prices are in some cases doubling from one year to the next. And how do you bid on these things?
From our perspective, nobody will.
Yeah.
There's lots of contingency. So for example, we're ordering in we're switching to AMR, like for radio read meters. And since we have meters, so we're purchasing the pieces. So they do 30 days, 60 days. So meters, it's the same thing. Like we may get a year guarantee on pricing, but not unless it's a huge order, and even that's not guaranteed. And it is, and we understand as a municipality, we like stability and set rates, but in today's world, it's just really difficult to get those. Yeah.
Okay. Last little opinion I'll throw out is, because of these recent supply chain challenges, do you see a highlighted need for more Canadian manufactured goods?
That would be great. Like I said, we did switch to a Canadian salt because we feel that they provided us much better service, but also we don't have the border issues. So, and there are it's interesting, just to put it out there, like up until recently, we were bound by the Privacy Act to only deal with technical local Canadian companies, which was a challenge at the beginning, but there was more and more companies putting up Canadian clouds and whatnot, but it just opened up. So I found that quite surprising, because I thought it was kind of a smart thing due to legislation for privacy. So I think it's easier to have Canadian suppliers, definitely. And in the past, I did a lot of purchasing myself, and I would always make sure I would try and get a Canadian distributor, but being aware of what the costs are, because you're paying for shipping, and when you get something across the border, you get a good cost, but then they hit you with your brokerage fees that you're like, oh, all of a sudden that's more. So yeah, it's from a utility perspective, it's great having Canadian suppliers, great Canadian distributors. Then we do get set rates and prices, and it's a known.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the past couple of years. I know this is kind of it's part of the discussion, but with COVID-19 lockdowns, I found in the last couple of years, the committees that would meet to discuss product approval were just not meeting anymore, right? They couldn't physically get together and have these sort of new product meetings. So it seems like for the last couple of years, there's been a real sort of, we'll say, shutdown of any new manufacturer or new distributor coming to town with a new product that might solve an issue. And then all of a sudden we run into these supply chain challenges. And there's like a backlog of vendors trying to get approved. And did you notice that at all in North Okanagan?
I I do have to say I'm less involved in that these days.
Right.
But I can say yes, we are looking. We're pretty fortunate here. We're constantly looking for new technology and new ways of doing things, especially with climate change and all the different things happening in the world. See it a little bit, but again, I guess I can't really comment that much on it.
Right.
So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, no, fair enough. Okay, well, let's jump over to labor. I've got a question here for Brian, the Walkerton Clean Water Center. Brian, many Canadian industries are experiencing a labor shortage. In the private sector, vacant positions persist right from general labor to skilled trades and management. The same is true in the public sector, at least with a shortage of nurses and doctors and even educators. But has this labor shortage impacted our public drinking water systems, and how?
Yeah, I believe it is. I believe it's just starting to, although we haven't quite seen the full effects yet. I think what we're going to see here, or I've already begun to see, is a shortage of the higher level operators and particularly managers of drinking water systems. It takes a while to get to those higher level certifications and even into the management position. And we just haven't been seeing the young professionals move to this industry. And like I said, I'm new here at the Walkerton Center. I spent the last few years working for a manufacturer in the US. It was a global manufacturer. And I can say it's not just Canada. I see the same thing happening in the US as well. And really the problem is when you start to lose these higher level operators and managers of systems, of course, then there's a vacuum and these younger operators come up, and sure, they've got skills operating and doing what they've done, but management's quite different, right? Then you're talking budgeting, you're talking personnel issues, maybe skills they haven't developed over the years. And also there's, as most of us in the industry know, it's half art, half science when you're dealing with water chemistry, right? So when you've got years and years of experience in the industry, and there's a plant upset, you've got a few tricks, if you will, up your sleeve that, back 10 years ago we tried this and it worked, or 15 years ago we tried this and it worked. So you get there perhaps a little bit faster. So I think what this really means is education is becoming even more important for these younger operators that are in the industry, to give them the tools that they might need for plant upsets, give them tools on how to manage operator systems. I worked for Fleming College for a while, and they've got a program there called, I believe the acronym is AWESOME. It's Advanced Water Systems Operations and Management. So they're trying to put management type curriculum in there so that when you graduate with your drinking water operator, you at least got a flavor of it. So it maybe helps you get there a little bit faster. So I think programs such as that, I'm sure they exist in other colleges across Canada, are pretty important. But again, just everyday operation is one thing, but knowing in the moment what to do during a plant upset is another. And I think that's what's at risk here.
Interesting. So anyone else want to kind of talk about how do you address that? How do you mitigate that risk? Z. Anybody wants to talk? Let's go ahead and jump right in.
Okay, I'm just going to comment quickly on our utility, because we're finding a very it is difficult to recruit. And it's difficult in the younger generation as well. It's highly competitive. And it's not just money. So what we have done and what we're trying to do is, and our utility is larger. So we have managers and the utilities group. We work really, really closely as a team, and we're really converting to a mentoring mentality. We're also, we have the luxury here that we hire 5 or 6 students a summer, and we really evaluate which students we want. And just recently, we did have a big change in operations staff, and we actually identified a couple of students who may not have chosen an operator as a lifestyle, and we had discussions with them. So we brought them on, and we're training them up on the internal. Okay, you have the job, now we'll give you the training. So you just have to be super creative. But I think the best way from our perspective is really changing your mentality from a top down to a mentoring environment, and know that these are your I'm retiring, I'm gone. And when I go, I want them to hardly notice I'm gone at all. Right.
Right.
So you have to change your mentality. It's not a competitive world anymore. You have to make sure that these young people are engaged. They want to stay. It's not about money. It's about lifestyle. It's about really learning on the job. And that's what keeps them. Anyways, that's my experience.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's a challenge for a lot of different industries, right? How do you get young, talented people to be, work for you or be a part of what it is that you're doing? And I guess it's not any different for a municipality and for operators in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Especially in First Nations communities, it's very difficult for them to keep trained, experienced operators because of the funds match that's required from the community with the federal government. And so often their wages are quite low. And once they have their levels and some experience, they tend to leave and go to urban centers, which means that First Nations communities, which often have poorer infrastructure and more challenging water to treat, end up with water systems operators that are the ones who are brand new and don't have that many levels and don't have that much experience, unfortunately.
Interesting. So there's a big wage gap there between some of these more remote places and working for a big city. Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that too. The other difficulty with First Nations and probably some of the more remote rural systems as well is they tend to be 1 or 2 operators deep. So you go into that profession, vacation, so on. It's hard to get away from it, right? Because you're the one person that everyone's relying on to create safe drinking water. If you're out for a week, we all know the first day of your vacation is when everything blows up, right? So it's a demanding job for them. So we need to get more folks in rural and First Nations interested in the profession. We've got to fix the wage gap, for sure, but also get more people interested. So there is some depth there as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting because anecdotally, I mean, I don't have facts in front of me, but I come from a sort of family of educators, and I know they always kind of talked about how teachers could make a lot of money going into these remote communities and being a teacher there. I'm surprised it's not sort of similar with water plant operators. You'd think that you'd want to, pay someone well to ensure that clean and safe drinking water is getting distributed to households out there. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Any other comments on that topic? Okay. So I'm going to jump over to an infrastructure question now for Kessie. We haven't heard from you. You've been quiet over there, Kessie. Quit talking so much.
Thanks, Justin. It's just to introduce myself. It's just the pronunciation of my last name is Govender.
Govender. Okay, thank you.
Just like to be the governor, but not not at this stage. I have been around the disaster recovery now for the last 5 to 7 years in Alberta, but I have been exposed to some disasters when I was in South Africa as well, when I used to work for the city of Durban in the wastewater area. But what I've really noticed is, although the environment is changing, the design standards don't seem to be having any adjustments, and they're still using some of the dated design criteria. And I'm just wondering what's being done to have a look at some of the changing environment and the amount of disasters that we are seeing, and seeing how communities or the industry is having a look at this ever-changing environment, whether it's due to global warming or climate change or whatever it is. But it is the frequency of events that have changed considerably. We've had these events in the past historically, but it wasn't like, a 1 in 100 year storm. There was a 1% chance of it occurring and thing, but it seems to be occurring more frequently than the 1 in 100 years. So just trying to see what the temperature is out there in the industry of having to look at what adjustments are being made.
Right. So, like broadly speaking, you mentioned the 100-year storm seemed to be an every year storm now. I mean, that's exaggerating, but it's certainly worse than it used to be. We got torrential rains, droughts, flooding, heat waves, hailstorms, forest fires, right? How would you grade broadly our infrastructure today and its capacity to handle these kinds of events?
Well, I mean, from what we can see is that from the different events, whether it's from the East Coast to the West Coast, that we don't seem to be prepared for these disasters. I mean, we can notice from what happened in BC not too long ago that, there are communities and areas being still developed in areas that should probably not have development, and there should be some thoughtful consideration being given to it. I mean, coming through right now, I'm with the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, which is in the trying to get communities back up and running after a disaster. And we find that having a look at some of the infrastructure that we have to provide the grant funding, is that some of it has been dated and not been updated or brought up to its even current standard, and whether the current standard does apply to the changing environment. I mean, like it's a good thing to see that we're using low flush toilets and stuff like that. But what is being done to have a look at the source of where it's coming from, greater education on the awareness for people, from where they're getting their water to where the water is being treated and how it's being discharged and how it's getting back into the environment, and where these facilities are being located or positioned. I mean, from what I've seen, you can see there's stuff in Fort McMurray. It was the fires in 2016, and then there was some flooding a little bit later, and then in 2020 they've had the massive ice jams, and then in Calgary you've had the 2013 major event, and then you had something in 2010 as well. And then BC had, some stuff in 2006 on, some high storms, which is not typical, that they have some, back-to-back events. At Toronto or Ontario or even Quebec have had all of these events occurring, and they're seeing a higher frequency of them occurring at a more intensities are not exactly, in terms of the design criteria that are well, from what I can see, but from where we are sitting at some of it. But when you go look at all of these kind of like, from Alberta, we look at some, providing the grant funding to try to bring these communities back to its pre-disaster functional condition, which is a standard that doesn't really, has been dated, and we find it challenging. So the communities, uh, only get a certain amount of funding, and then they have a shortfall for the other portion of the funding, which I know that, the federal government has made some of that available, but I still think there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of infrastructure, whether it's potable water, whether it's wastewater or stormwater.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more that we can do. I think Canada is not very doesn't have a great track record when it comes to water conservation. I think we're per capita we use a lot of water as Canadians. So right away there's easy things that we can do better. But even I from a supply standpoint, I see standards, municipal standards. Obviously, I'm looking at municipalities right coast to coast and primarily in Ontario and Atlantic Canada. And you see products in there that are antiquated. The manufacturer doesn't even make them anymore, or they don't exist. And so it's a challenge, right? There's a lot of work that needs to happen to sort of bring these systems up, kind of up to I don't want to say up to standard. They're at a standard, but it's raising the bar, I guess, is the challenge. All costs money.
I would comment on that.
Okay.
Having I've been here for 12 years, and we've dealt with many, many issues that I just want to comment that, I mean, we put together a very good ERP, emergency response plan, which we review every year. We do mocks, we do all this stuff. And these emergencies aren't, I'd have to say with the wildfire, last year we have loss of source, and then the wildfire came, and I work with 6 different fire departments, and it was a gong show. I got to know all the fire chiefs really well, but nobody thought about contacting water. We were getting evacuated, and it was a very, very interesting response. We were very lucky that everything worked out well, but I would have to say that every time we have these issues, you have to change your thinking. So, for instance, with the wildfires, we are now coming up with I'm working with all the fire departments right now to come up with I think we're calling them wildfire structural protection plans, where they incorporate the water. And it is a communication piece. I had a gentleman putting sprinklers that were, I think they were 400 GPM. He put 3 of them on his roof, and then asked for more pressure because he's got 40 PSI. And I was like, and they need 110. So, better deal with these sprinkler issues. So it is, we're spending a lot of time and effort doing this. And a lot of times these you don't expect them. They're not on the curve. The flooding, after the flooding we had here, right, the next year we raised all the electrical in our pump stations, and we fireproofed all our pump stations. But who would have thought that the flood level would go 2 or 3 feet above the historic flood level? So, sometimes it is response, but it's really important to when these things come out and they highlight your weaknesses, because they do, that you respond and you plan for them right away, because they'll come around again.
Great point, Dee, and that's excellent that you guys are able to change things so quickly. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah.
If
Next time.
if I could just add to that, I've sat through a couple of our courses here at the center, our face-to-face courses, and one of the good things that I see happen is the conversations that the course sparks. It talks about some of these events that have happened at plants, and it spreads kind of that knowledge across. So maybe this plant has had this issue and this is how they dealt with it, and another plant hasn't even started to think about it yet. So bringing those best practices forward and having those discussions is really important, because why learn it all again when another municipality has already figured it out? So our courses have that built into them, but we're primarily in Ontario right now. We need to find more ways to get best practices shared amongst operators and utilities coast to coast.
And on that note, Brian, are any of your courses available to folks from outside the province of Ontario?
So right now our mandate says that we physically cannot go outside of Ontario's borders, but that doesn't mean online. Like, it's hosted here in Ontario. You can take our online modules. And as I mentioned in the address at the beginning, we also have like hybrid courses where they're facilitator led, but they're online. So those are open to anyone across Canada, or even the US for that matter. And we're hoping to crank more of that out in the near future. We are in discussions with the Ministry of Environment here to allow us to physically travel to other Canadian provinces. So we'll stay tuned on that. But for now, just the online stuff is open. So contact us if you've got a need for a course.
And the pilot testing that you guys do is pretty neat. I think that has applications right coast to coast.
Yeah. And again, right now we're only allowed to apply that within Ontario's borders, but we're working on that as well.
Okay. Well, I got you, Brian. I've got a water quality issue. I'm gonna lob one up here. So cyanobacteria, formerly known as blue-green algae, can produce an array of harmful cyanotoxins in lakes, rivers, reservoirs, predominantly late summer and early fall. Originally perceived to be a problem in southern climate regions, a general concern is that global temperature increases brought on by climate change will contribute to continued geographic expansion of toxic producing cyanobacterial blooms. And so when we talk about that, you think of, global warming. It's like the sort of obvious topics that come up are melting ice caps and weather extremes as they relate to global warming. But in your opinion, are these algae blooms and source water protection in general getting enough of a spotlight on the conversation about climate change?
I don't think they are. And this is actually an area where I've spent a lot of my career. Fairly early on in my career, I worked closely with Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute in the US to actually culture algae so we could figure out how to remove it. So I've done desal pre-treatment, potable treatment of things like microcystis. I worked on Waco, Texas's water, and there was something like 50 some odd species of harmful algae in the reservoir that we had to get out. But what we're finding here at the center, even through piloting, is more and more requests for help on figuring out treatment options for harmful algae blooms in places so far north that you would have never thought of it, 10, 20 years ago. So I don't think it's getting enough coverage. Like you said, we're talking about the effects on shorelines. We're going to see water levels rise. We're going to see crops affected where, where you used to be able to grow such and such a crop, now it's too dry, too hot, and vice versa. Where it used to be too cold, now we can actually viably grow some of this stuff. But yeah, I don't think it is getting enough attention. And I think this is where utilities need to take to social media, which again requires a bit of training. You don't want to just turn people loose on social media, but certainly talk about the impacts on their utilities so that their communities can better understand what they're struggling with and potentially why costs are going up, right? As you get more contaminants, costs generally go up. And I think we should be doing more at the public school level and high school levels. Let's bring this into the science classes, and they're talking about climate change, but why isn't water part of the curriculum?
Yeah.
And I think that has two benefits, right? Not only are you educating them on where their water's coming from and some of the battles they're having and why climate change needs to be addressed, but you might catch 2 or 3 per class that take up the profession of water treatment in doing so. So right. World Water Day is a good event for that. I know in my past career in manufacturers, we used to like to give back to the communities we're in and get into the classrooms, but that's one day. Let's make it part of the curriculum.
Great point.
And then just to put a plug out for Walkerton, we do have a course here called Managing Algae and Drinking Water Systems. So feel free to check that out too if you are struggling with algae in your area.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Brian. Well, Mark, are we? We're pretty much running out of time here.
Yeah, you guys are way over time. This conversation has gone on for too long, I tell you. But I know, but actually, before I just want to acknowledge Nicole here. She has she's been sending all sorts of amazing links. We have a chat feature here inside of the app that we're using to stream, and Nicole has been sending all the best links that I'm trying to post to YouTube. But I want to say thank you for that, Nicole.
You're welcome. What I'm used to doing.
You are a living resource for clean water.
Yeah, that was coming fast and hot. Those resources. It was good.
Yeah, I can barely keep up with it, but I can tell you, anybody watching right now, if you want to learn about any of these topics, Nicole is definitely a good person to reach out to. And before we end, someone was asking about contact information for our panelists. Could everyone maybe take a moment to give some information about where we can find them?
Can we just post that maybe, because we've got everyone's email?
Okay. But does anybody right now want to say, Nicole?
Yeah,
where,
sure.
where could people find you?
Yeah, sure. I am the executive director of Safe Drinking Water Foundation. So the website link was put out by Mark, thanks, but safewater.org. We have a Facebook page, a Facebook group under that same name. We are on Twitter with the handle @SafeWa1, so I can put that in the chat if you want. And we have a LinkedIn. You can email me at info@safewater.org or phone my office at 1306-934-0389. I'm also the administrator of Safe Drinking Water Team. Their website is safedrinkingwaterteam.org, and you can visit that website and sign up for their emails. They have a forum, so monthly emails go out with questions and answers, and it's for First Nations and rural water systems operators to ask questions and answer questions and help each other. I'm also the communications coordinator for Saskatchewan First Nations Water Association, and they have classes for continuing education units that are valid in Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. They just got funding, so the classes will be made free for at least some people. I don't know if it's just Saskatchewan or if it's all three provinces. So you might want to hold off on registering, but you might want to check out the classes to learn more. So their website is sfnwa.ca.
Wonderful. Kessie, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, or as well as at the province of Alberta at Alberta Emergency Management Agency. So you'll be able to reach out to me on either one of those areas.
And Mr. Bates?
Yeah, probably best is to go to our website at wcwc.ca and click on the contact tab. You'll get a phone number, a toll-free number. There's a form you can fill out or an email you can use. And of course, we have LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook as well. But all of that is listed on wcwc.ca on the contact tab.
Wonderful. And we have a super fan here that absolutely wants your contact information. So Valerie, I see your comments. It would be helpful to type the info in the chat as it went too quickly to get everything down as they spoke. Fair enough. Look on the Proline Fittings page, and we will post all of our panelists' information. I think we lost Z in the mix there, so I'll make sure to get their information there as well.
You must have bumped her, Mark, when you jumped in.
I made a producer decision. Said, okay, this is no. It's she unfortunately dropped, but we'll make sure to get everybody's contact information on the Proline Fittings LinkedIn page. We'll do kind of like maybe a little post-mortem post after, excuse me, TechAQUA is over, and you'll find all the information there.
That's great. And I do see Zia is posted in the chat as well. She's got her email and phone number there.
Oh, I think we. Oh, actually, there is Z.
Oh, back. You're back.
There is Z. Excellent, Z. Where can people locate you? Where can they find you?
My either by email, zzee.marcolin@rdno.ca, or my office number is 250-550-3660. Those are the two best. I'm not in LinkedIn, not in Facebook. So,
I can appreciate that.
yeah.
Well, that's great. Mark, I think we're officially over time now.
We are, yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to get to our training sessions. That's why everybody's here.
Yeah.
That's why everybody's here.
We're getting techie now. But thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Z, Nicole, Kessie, Brian. Wonderful having you here and chatting. First time doing this, so it was pretty fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And informative.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
And we are back. Just you and I, Justin.
Oh.
Just you and I. So I think it's time now to do one of our. What did you think about that discussion? By the way, was that fun to host?
It was great. Yeah, I thought it was great. There was still there was some hot potatoes I was ready to lob up there, but I think we just ran out of time. But
we did.
It was good. I've got John here says he's in the lobby, but
he is in the lobby. I see him. Shall I pull him in?
Well, he's not up next. We've got.
He is not up next. No, the first presentation was Ford. So
that's right, our platinum sponsor.
That's right.
Yes, a very prestigious $3,000 donation sponsorship from Ford Meterbox. They are up next. They're going to be doing a technical presentation. I believe that Ford has introduced some new products for the treatment plant arena. So Ford, for folks that are aware of Ford Meterbox, I think traditionally they're one of the industry's best in terms of underground products, but they also have a wide range of products for water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants. And I believe that is sort of the focus of this presentation they're going to give.
Excellent. So shall we begin?
Let's do it.
Well, welcome to Ford Meterbox presentation on our plant's product line. My name is Nick Payton, and I will be providing you with today's overview. First, a little bit about me. My background is almost 30 years in the water, wastewater, and industrial fire protection market. In that capacity, I've traveled over 45 countries, toured many water, wastewater facilities, treatment facilities, refineries, private water plants, and more job sites than I'd care to remember. I've worked with our distributors, utilities owners on building and maintaining their systems and helping them find solutions for their challenges. I can say that I've traveled and visited more wastewater facilities than I'd care to remember. But overall, they're the same other than the people that I get to meet and the languages that they speak when I get to go there. But enough about me today. Today, I'm here to talk specifically about Ford Meterbox and our plant product solutions. So on that note, let's begin. Also, along with our presentation today, I do want to say that I have Steve Kratkow, our sales manager, who's based in Canada. He is going to be participating with me on this at the end, and he's going to translate my very thick American Midwest accent for you, should any of you have any trouble. And also, I will personally be deflecting all of your questions at the end and making him answer them. So on that note, let's talk about the history of Ford Meterbox. This is a very super abridged version of our history. I am not going to speak about the volumes of patents and innovation that Ford has provided to the industry over the years. Most individuals are familiar with our products. If you're involved in the AWWA water or wastewater market, you could be familiar with Ford meter box. We are actually recognized by the words in our company's title, meter box. It's what the company was founded on. And from that, Ford went on to create a line of service brass and service materials, which we have some pictures on the screen, but most people are familiar with that. But in the past 40 years, Ford has expanded into the pipe repair and restraint business with the acquisitions of companies such as Superior Waterworks and Uniflange. And those acquisitions were able to expand Ford Meter Box's name and reputation into being a trusted name in pipe repair and restraint products. And I mentioned the AWWA market. Specifically outside North America, Ford Meter Box produces products to the general ISO market and makes some very specific products for applications that are very country specific globally. Now, that was the overview of the history, and to support that product offering, Ford maintains 2 major manufacturing facilities in North America and 5 warehouses. First, our headquarters, where I'm actually recording this. Our headquarters are located in Wabash, Indiana, with a facility covering 54,000 square meters or 581,000 square feet. For those that are reading my slide, and sorry, I have to keep my audiences for both metric and imperial. But not only do we have manufacturing here, we have a brass foundry where we pour no lead brass and some leaded brass occasionally, but we machine, bend, weld, and ultimately manufacture thousands of brass products, meter setters, and meter pits annually. Now, in the southern part of the United States, our Pell City, Alabama facility is home to our Uniflange restraint lines and many other pipe products. There, they cut, stamp, weld, machine, and create the finished pipe products, which means we cover everything from repair clamps to tapping sleeves, couplings, and joint restraints. This facility covers 31,000 square meters or 335,000 square feet, again, for my metric imperative members of the audience today. But in addition to those 2 major manufacturing facilities, Ford has 5 supporting warehouses in the United States and Canada. 3 of those in the US, located in Reno, Nevada, Jacksonville, Florida, and the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. Now, the Canadian facilities are located in the greater Calgary area and the greater Toronto area. And in normal times, these facilities maintain inventory to local preferences and allow for faster delivery of our products to our channel partners. Now, Ford Meter Box stocks both brass and pipe products, including the Uniflange line in these facilities. Now, I have said in normal times, and with supply chain demands and a superheated construction market in North America, we have seen the inventories depleted currently and producing some longer lead times. And know that Ford's team is all working hard to refill and rebuild our inventory position and get back to the levels that you would expect. Now, as I said previously, most utilities and engineers recognize Ford Meter Box for the underground distribution products that we manufacture for the AWWA market. Products such as corporation stops, service connections, service settles, and again, the meter pits or meter boxes. But in the past few decades, we've also become more synonymously with uniflange, the joint restraints, and some of our other restrained product offerings. So kind of to sum this up a little bit, for the underground or distribution market, Ford has been a trusted supplier of our products for over 100 years, with a variety of products that go from the pipe all the way through to the residential service. Now, what most people don't actually connect us with is that we actually serve the plant side of the business as well, or the area inside the fence, the applications of both the water and wastewater systems that aren't necessarily associated with the distribution system or residential connections. Now, to give you an idea of the various type of projects that we can supply products to, let's take a look at some of those areas and markets. Now, I apologize in advance. That's mighty fine small print there. And I should have done a better job to make that bigger and a little bit more available to you. But let me walk through some of the highlights of this slide. So in the water market, you can find our product on treatment plants, booster pump stations, water towers, control valves, zoning vaults, district metering vaults, and many other water applications. And then on the wastewater side, you can find us in the treatment plant, our lift station, collection tunnels, booster pump stations, and recharge and reclaim water projects. You'll find our products also in some desalination facilities on the intake lines or in the actual facilities themselves. And then in the civil market, you'll be able to find our product in dams, reservoirs, power plants, fish hatcheries, tunnel piping, and even bridge crossings. And then lastly, we cover the industrial market. Again, whether it's a private treatment facility or something along the fire pump station or in the fire loop itself. So as you can see, we cover a number of project types and a number of markets that cross over and are adjacent to both the water and wastewater market. But more specifically, and that's a very broad way of saying we have products in those markets, but what exactly are those products? Now, again, my apologies, because if you thought the last slide was pretty small print, this one is really going to test your eyesight, and I apologize. You might actually think at this point I get paid by the word. I do not. And I'm not going to read this word to word. We're going to talk about the highlights on this slide. This page gives you an overview of the sheer breadth of product that we can manufacture based on the application within the facility or within the project that you have in these areas inside the fence. So we make products that allow the pipelines and plants to function within the water or wastewater system, both above and below ground. To help make sense, we've kind of broken these up into some categories. So we can talk about products that connect flanges or join plain ends of pipe. We provide the products that can restrain and support the pipes and pipelines. And from small line or large diameter, we can provide a range of products that tap and allow for adding a new line. And then when those lines leak, we offer a line of repair solutions to match your preference. And whether you're connecting or joining, we also offer the product that will actually provide the seal in those joints. Now, as I said, we're not going to go through each one of these models, and I'm going to speak on each one of these categories with some general information. Several of these products are similar, but reflect a choice of a utility based on materials or configuration, or maybe a pressure category. So you're not going to hear the specifics, and I'm not going to bore you with every minute detail on size range or pressure rating of this product, unless, of course, you've already tuned me out, you're not listening, and then there will, in fact, be a test at the end. But no, all kidding aside, this is actually meant to be a fairly general and just highlight the sheer scope and breadth of our product and an understanding about how Ford is your pipe products partner within the treatment plant market. So I'm going to start with the connecting group, or the flanged end. And the simple flanged coupling adapter, whose name states exactly what it is, we make those to expansion joints, or the maintenance team's best friend in the dismantling joint. We offer a range of products, both restrained and unrestrained. And for connecting all of these flanges together. One of our more recent products added to this group is the equipment coupling, or the equipment connection. This is an upgrade to the dismantling joint. The equipment connection offers a 3/4 inch offset and up to 4 degrees of angular deflection, which helps cover lateral, radial, and angular misalignment, which can be a common challenge in trying to connect some old pipes together or put a new piece of equipment into an existing pump station. So all of these flanged ends and couplings adapters cover the spectrum of pipes. They come with ANSI 125-pound for ductile iron, or 150-pound steel ends, depending on which nomenclature you use or are used to. Other flange drilling patterns can be made available, such as 250-pound on ductile or 300-pound on steel. So we have a wide variety of flange couplings in our arsenal. Now, if I move over to not just connecting, but we talk about joining two pipes together, whether they're the same type of pipe or two dissimilar pipe ODs, we have an array of we have an array of joining options as well. And while most of the above ground piping consists of either steel or ductile iron materials, the need for a wide range coupling is going to be infrequent. But being able to transition from a reducing coupling, or being able to transition pipe sizes, can be found often in buildings and connecting the older lines to newer lines. And we have the solutions that you are looking for. Again, you've got piping between buildings that can also be PVC material when it's buried underground. We have a line of restrained couplings that can cover either ductile iron pipe OD or steel OD, or even connect the two from ductile to steel. And all of these products are designed to join either the same type of pipes or different pipes together. And if you need to join steel to PVC and then go back to ductile iron, we can cover that for you too. Now, in the prior two slides, I actually did mention restraining product. And we know that in this industry, you need to restrain pipe. Now, whether it's covering some piping on a connecting flange or covering a joint of pipe, we do have a wide range of Uniflange branded products. We have everything from the very simple flanged lugs. That's just a restraint or a coupling that'll restrain a coupling, between two flanges, to inserts for stiffening HDPE or high density polyethylene, to covering a range of PVC or ductile iron restraints that can restrain the bells and provide you a restraint at the mechanical joint end. Again, we have a number of products, and some of which I've mentioned, that are either on the connecting or the joining slides. And again, one thing to highlight in this product category is that we also have a line of restrained casing spacers. And that's a product that can support the pipe barrel or support a pipe bell. And all of these products that we have to offer, again, offer you a solution in Restrained. Now, usually this is where I get a couple of quizzical looks, because tapping is not something that you hear frequently in discussing the plant product category. But it is a means for adding an extension or adding to an existing line, and usually done in a manner that is done so you don't have to disrupt your current operation. We offer an array and a variety of tapping sleeves and saddles depending on your preference. And you have everything to choose from small service saddles that can provide you the support for inserting new chlorine injection points or adding a small line for test sampling purposes. We've got you covered. You need to install a new large line, we can offer a tapping sleeve in an all stainless material, a drop-in bolt, and a repair clamp type. Prefer to weld your steel outlet onto your steel pipe, we got that covered as well. One of our newest product offerings in this category is our tapping sleeve for concrete pressure pipe, which allows the tapping crew the ability to tap and then regrout to the existing line so you can successfully transition from your concrete pipe to the newly added line of your material preference. Now, we covered connecting and joining and restraint and tapping, and this is the area where normally you have some conversation, because unfortunately pipe and pressure, with that comes leaks in the system, and this happens inside the plants, inside the fence, and just as much as it happens out in the distribution system. They can be small leaks, they can be large leaks, and they can come in many different types and sizes. So depending on the type, we have a number of options based on your preference and how you want to repair. Do you need just a bell clamp? Have a pesky pinhole leak? Do you prefer a ductile or stainless lug for your repair clamp? We even have a service pack option called the Fazerk, which allows a small utility the ability to repair multiple OD of pipes within a system by just having a small number of interchangeable repair clamps. But one of our newest products in this category is the bell Encapsulator, which fully contains a leaking bell end, and in applications where cutting the bell out or shutting a line down completely are not available. So we've added that product, and again, we have a wide variety of offerings to cover how you would like to repair an existing leak or problem within your system. Now, all of the previous slides were some type of connecting or joining or tapping, and we do want to take a moment to focus on some of the items that we have in our offerings that help do the hard work of providing the actual seal. And we do have a full flange covering called our cap gasket. We also offer a patented So Easy gasket, which allows you the ability to transition from a steel pipe into a mechanical joint end, and gives you a cost-effective alternative and allow a large diameter steel line, 14 through 24 inch, to be adapted to your mechanical joint product. And again, all of these are a must-have product if you're using it in both buried or above ground applications. Now, that was the product overview. And this is where I take a moment and take a breath, and then also say that we're going to talk for a couple minutes just about coatings. Ford's product can come in one of several coatings. Each product has its own base type of coating. And I should mention here that our 304 or 316 stainless steel products are typically not coated, nor is a steel product that is meant to be welded on or joined up to another. It's typically not coated as well. That's going to be a field application. But all of our standard ductile iron or steel products do have some type of base coating, and we will use one of the following types. So we offer an E-coat or an E-coating that we used on all of our cast restraints. And this coating methodology comes from the automotive industry. It takes a small thin film or a microfilm of our material. It's applied via a heat treating process. And the end result is you get a very good scratch and chip resistance and good long-term corrosion protection. And a very popular coating that we offer. Another is the FBE or fusion bonded epoxy. And in that process, you have to heat your casting up and then you apply a thermosetting powder epoxy. Now, a critical requirement of that particular coating is the cleaning and surface preparation. And if when done properly by blasting and getting a near white finish, you've applied the thermosetting epoxy. The end result, you get anywhere from 12 to 14 mils thickness of the coating. And again, that's going to give you good, solid corrosion protection. Then the last and more probably most popular is our two-part liquid epoxy. In this case, we use a Tennemic brand N140. And our surface preparation on the castings and the materials is the same as what you would do for a fusion bonded epoxy. Again, you have to blast and you have to prepare your casting for the coating. Surface preparation, again, is key. One of the advantages is not having to heat the casting up, but also some of the overcoat ability that you get in the two-part liquid epoxy, which are often a must and a requirement in in-plant applications. Now, again, I'm going to take another break because usually this is where I pause and I'm going to catch my breath. And usually I have several people who are trying to ask a question about which coating is best. And so I am going to give you my best consultant answer. It depends. Each product has different applications and options and considerations, and some are based on casting size, some are based on the product application, and some are even based on how you're engineering or how you're designing your system. Most are going to be concerned with product coating, durability, and the bigger concern or what we see is it going to be able to be handled roughly? And then if it is damaged, can it be field repaired and overcoated? And the real world installation, you get real world handling, but then reality sets in. The products do get scratched and dropped and gouged and hammered and quite frankly abused in the field. You want to have a product that can accept an overcoat option, and then that overcoat option can be field applied. And that gives the owner, the utility, the contractor the best opportunity in being able to do a field repair and do on-site painting. Now that was a very brief overview of our coatings, and I would encourage, if you have more questions on that, you can get in touch with our local sales team as well on coatings and coating specifics. Now, in addition to all of those products that we talked about, Ford also offers tailored and engineered solutions. So if you need a special tee or some other fabricated product, we can design and build products in both steel and stainless steel materials. You looking for a special outlet, an adapter spool, or just a connection or a challenge on how to connect or join two ends, we can help. And not only can we provide you with fabricated solutions, but engineering restraints, we can help provide you some tailored systems that will be specific to your applications. Again, we can give you exactly what you're looking for. So if you have a special requirement, you need a dismantling joint that is 125 pound drilled on one side to 250 pound on another, we can do that. Just be prepared to have some back and forth questions where we're going to ask some, such as the size, the type of pipe, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? Are there any pressure constraints? And then, of course, the overall, well, how fast do you need it? So looking at this, why is Ford your plant partner? And, over the last 15 minutes or so, you can now take a breather. You can nudge your neighbor. You can start to wake up. And, this is where we're going to do the recap so you can tell your supervisor that you paid attention. And we covered everything from connecting, joining, tapping, repairing, and sealing pipe. And we do all of that. We're constantly working with our customers and engineers to enhance our products, our product offering, to give you an improved product, improved materials of construction, and even improving our communication with our channel partners and helping them and providing them training tools. We're doing all of that. Now, we try to make things easier. We have a team of individuals, both inside our facilities and outside sales team, ready and willing to help you with your in-plant construction needs. Ford treats and tracks this portion of our business separately. And again, we are constantly upgrading our customer experience services to improve the interaction between Ford and our channel partners. We have multiple engineers available to help and support us and you, giving you the solutions, provided we can get the details and information that we need. You have design challenges, we're going to be there to help you as a trusted partner would. And then on top of all those people, on top of all those engineers, you've got people like myself and Steve, and we're able to talk, listen, talk about your challenges or what you'd like to do. And I will tell you, full disclosure, I am in sales. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to make it up. No, I'm just kidding. I would not do that. That was just the way to give you that final nudge and wake you up here at the end of the presentation. Now, we are constantly learning, and we are supported by the team members at our factories, and they have engineering degrees and decades of field experiences. So it works well that we can lean on them and communicate with them, and they get to support us technically. And occasionally they'll even say nice things about Steve and I. So it's probably the donuts. But anyway, at this point, you're probably well tired of hearing me talk. And I'm going to catch my breath. And I'm going to let Steve be available to answer your questions. But first, I would like to thank you for you guys being a great audience and paying attention, allowing me and Ford Meterbox to provide you with a brief overview of our plant products and our plant solutions. And because you guys were a great audience, there's no test at the end. Thank you.
There I go, being muted again, and you're muted as well, Justin.
Yeah, I saw that. Got it.
Yeah, there we go. We have to do it a couple of times. That's the obligatory. Oh my God, I'm muted. But I want to thank Nick. That was a great recording of his presentation, and through the magic of the internet, he is with us today. Can I bring him in, Justin?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, here he comes.
And
I'll remove.
Hey,
Hey,
there he
Justin.
is.
Great.
Hey, Nick.
Hello.
I'm great. I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic.
Thanks for joining us live here today. That was a great presentation, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you for
that.
putting that together. I like, especially like the end, how you're charming the engineering team with donuts. That was good. But you mentioned, I noticed in your presentation, I'm not super familiar with Ford because, of course, it's more of a Western Canada product for Proline. But you mentioned that you have some products that will encapsulate the bell of a PVC pipe.
Yes, we have a new product that we launched about 5-6 months ago now. It's called an Encapsulator. It does exactly what it actually says it's going to do. It actually encapsulates the bells. We can go anything from a 4-inch all the way up to right now 36-inch bells.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you've got a critical pipeline, say heading into a factory, right? They can't shut down. They got a leak at the bell. You could put your solution on it. Is that the kind of the idea there?
That's correct. Yes, you can put your solution on it. If you can't shut the line down, if you can't isolate it, and if really just cutting and trying to replace it is not going to be economically feasible.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of these manufacturing facilities, especially like every minute of downtime is millions of dollars, right? Depending on what it is they're doing.
Well, believe it or not, we even have a case study in our own factory here where we've actually gone over and encapsulated over, instead of a bell end, we actually went over a shoulder type coupling that was above some equipment that we couldn't shut down, and we wanted to keep the factory running. So we actually used the product ourselves.
Yeah, and so that could even for a utility, that doesn't want to shut down a pipeline, and it could be a major, same thing, could be going to a hospital or something, right? Where, rather than shut the line down and make the repair, you could just have your encapsulating technology on there. Interesting. Oh, good to know.
Well, thank you, Justin.
Yeah, so that was great. I don't know if there's any questions. It's difficult, right? Because folks aren't actually present with us in the sense that they can't talk to us, right? So they have to type. But
no, I don't see any questions in the chat, but I do want to thank Nick for joining us today. And that was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much, Nick.
All right. Appreciate it, Mark. Thank you again, Justin.
Yes, thank you, Nick. Again, platinum sponsor, Ford, $3,000. Very appreciative of that, Nick. That's fantastic.
All right. Thanks again, 100%. Guys.
All right. Take care.
All righty. So I think now we move on to the next presentation, correct?
The Flotra Mag.
Yes.
It's such
we have John. I don't know if John has visual. I just see. Oh, there he is. I think he had his camera covered by something, so all I saw was orange. So I was like, "Oh boy, is this going to be a tech support?" All right, so here comes John, and you guys can chat, and I have all the videos queued up and ready to go.
Okay. Oh, yes. The younger, more charming, handsomer Drew has joined us. How's it going, John?
It's good. Happy World Water Day.
World Water Day. Yes, for those folks that don't know John Drew, he is the managing director. I believe I got that right, John, of George Fisher Piping Systems Canada. And so George Fisher is partnered with Proline Fittings, and John's going to talk to us sort of an overview, right, before we have someone that's going to get into more of the technical nuts and bolts of a product.
Yeah. So, what I was planning on doing, I'll give you guys a quick sort of 5-minute overview of what George Fisher is, with a little video included. And then one of our technical team, Tim, is going to introduce a new product for us, the Flotra Mag. So George Fisher is a 220-year-old company. We're headquartered out of Schaffhausen, Switzerland. And we're made up of 3 different divisions: piping systems, casting solutions, and machining solutions. I work in the piping systems division, obviously, and everything we do is typically for the safe transport of gases and liquids. Almost everything we make is thermoplastics based. So we're talking about PVC, CPVC, polypropylene, polyethylene, PVDF. For the sake of today's presentation, we're going to focus in on one of our instruments, which is the Flotra Mag. This is a full port inline mag meter made entirely out of PVC, or other materials depending on the case, and that's unique in the world. We're the only guys that have got a full port mag meter made out of plastic. So our target market, or where we sell these things, with regards to water plants, these are going to show up in your chemical feed systems, or polymer lines, or anything that has aggressive chemistry attached to it that you want to monitor. And so without further ado, Justin, maybe we'll just roll the clip, and we'll show you a lot more about GF, with way better actors.
Well, look, we're outside now. We can provide commentary on it.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't got any volume yet.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Could you guys hear the clip?
Nope. No
No,
volume.
Just one moment.
I'm guessing it was some kind of ambient kind of music.
Yes, it was very
Really?
fashionable because George Fisher, of course, is the most fashion. It's a very, very fashionable company.
I could just imagine the drama that was being built.
220 years of Swissness.
Yeah, the Flotra Mag. I mean, obviously, we're going to get into the technical details, but it's pretty neat product. One thing that grabbed me was how you can fit it into tight spaces with very few pipe diameters required in and out on that mag meter.
It's true, right? And the thing is, mag meters aren't anywhere near a new invention, but making one out of plastic is, right? So the wetted parts being the body and the electrodes, right? As long as we can keep the electrodes out of materials that are corrosion resistant, then we're good for all those types of nasty materials.
That's right.
Let me know if you hear it now.
Hear birds.
No, don't hear it.
No. Yeah, I think.
Did you guys were you able to hear the audio?
No audio.
Okay, let me.
Yeah,
I'll fiddle with it just a moment.
Worst case scenario, you can always throw the link in the chat and people can look at it from
there. I will throw the link in the chat. There was fortunately a little audio issue there, folks.
All right, then what I'm gonna do is scramble.
All inaudible.
And show you a new product. This is the LOX coupling. Ooh. This is perfect for the waterworks guys. This is really what it is a large stab foot coupling that we're using for 100 ductile iron sized pipes, where you just stab it, it's restrained, it's coupled, and it doesn't leak. This is going to be a game changer for us that we're going to launch this year.
That's coming out May?
Yeah, we expect to have our inventory by May, June, somewhere around there. All the inventory is on the water right now.
Yep.
This has gone through every trial, every test we could do. NSF 61 certified. Anyway, it's going to be really cool. If you no longer have to use thrust blocks, no longer have to use pipe restraints, and just a single use, one-time coupling. Wherever you can't fuse or don't want to fuse pipes, this would be perfect for them.
Yeah. And just speed up installation time.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, I don't know if you were streaming earlier, we had a discussion about supply chain constraints. And I know that, the whole sort of NJ fitting world was impacted by those supply chain constraints. So having a new product that's improved, that will also address some of those issues, will really kind of help to solve those problems.
And to be honest, we were supposed to launch this last year, right? And that it was those exact supply chain constraints that sort of pushed it out another year. But now that we've got that more or less ironed out, we've invested pretty heavy into adding capacity, just knowing that it's going to work for us. There's the East Bay Municipal District in California is already signed on, and they're putting it in service as we speak. So they're going to be using this for the next 2 years, and the rest is just up for us to get going with.
Yep. Excellent. And 4 to 12 inch, correct?
Yeah.
4 to 12 inch, fully restrained onto C900, as well as Bionics C907.
Yeah, really any ductile iron sized pipe, right? So as long as the OD is ductile iron, then we're good to go. The next product will be IPS.
Yes, which for HDPE, right?
Yeah, that's the second iteration.
I sat through a technical presentation with Jim there a month ago or so.
Yeah.
And it was pretty neat. Showed some videos of pipes exploding long before the coupling ever gave way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you can, in terms of how well it restrains, right, you can lift up the equivalent of a semi truck, right, a tractor trailer, and it won't let go.
In terms of pulling force, yeah.
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 Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, going back to the Flotra meter, you kind of prefaced that where you would see the Flotra mag is in your chem feed lines, right? Which of course is true because it can handle any of those nasty chemicals. I think the electrodes in it are titanium.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So the body itself is PVC, and or you can do it in your other thermoplastic.
CPVC or any other plastic that's compatible. But the most common ones will be PVC for sure.
PVC, yeah. But why not have that on a water line too, like a raw water, or is it just because of the size limitations, or?
Yeah, well, you can put it on raw water, right? Really, a mag meter works on any liquid that conducts. So for raw water line, with plastics, your Achilles heel is always pressure and temperature. So if the pressure is too high or the temperature is too high, we can't use a plastic, but it certainly makes sense. I think for sure our biggest market will be in the chemical side, but really this is another situation where you can keep pipe materials similar with their instrument materials. So if you've got PVC pipe, use a PVC meter, right? If you've got metal pipe, use a metal meter.
Well, I'm thinking for a lot of those smaller pump houses, pump stations, right, where your pipes are 3-4 inch, your pressures aren't too high, and you want to have that remote connectivity. So now you've got your Flotra mag that's dialed in, right, with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity. You're getting smartphone information right at your fingertips, just for this kind of smaller systems.
Yeah, it's good for the smaller system, good for the smaller water treatment OEM, guys doing small ROs or filtration systems. Fits in well. Chlorine injection, if you want to measure it, right, then we've got that as well.
So, Mark, do we get a video?
I think we do. We do. So sorry for the delay.
It's okay.
And let me know that you can hear this.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
Welcome.
Wonderful.
Yes. Here we go.
It's GF. What is GF? What do these two letters stand for? Good question. GF is a big company, but it seems not everyone knows what GF is doing. Do you know what GF stands for? Well, let's find out. Could it be grapefruits, maybe goldfish, or girlfriend? Of course, it's none of them. Actually, GF stands for Georg Fischer, but nowadays, it's much more about...
Well, it's not grapefruits.
And our ambition from the day this young and modern company was founded, over 200 years ago. Becoming better every day since 1802 has made us going forward ever since. Around the globe, our people are all about innovations, precision, Swiss quality, and sustainability. It's actually in our DNA. Going forward saves water by providing leakage-free piping systems and bringing it to wherever it's needed most. It means reducing the weight of automotive parts and therefore CO2 emissions. Look at this crosscar beam. Half the weight, double the functionality. What do you think?
是的，这真的很轻。
That's good catch.
Going forward is also about improving the products of our customers. Like these hip implants. They're so precise thanks to our lasers. They help many people to, you guessed it, go forward. And we go forward so that others can go faster. From time to time, there are setbacks to really go forward. You guys all right? Helping us to make a huge step or a very tiny one. Because less is more, right? Going forward helps us creating a sustainable future so that some things stay. We can only do all this because we are going forward together.
We can't hear you. Put it on the microphone.
Stop. I'm not going forward. I fly.
Yeah, it kind of sums up the experience.
So you see, over the last 200 years, we have been going forward quite a bit. We know that there are still many things to discover. Who put that there? And we are thrilled to keep going forward. And if you want to go forward as well, let's go together.
Very good.
Wow.
Oh,
Very
like that.
cool.
Yeah.
So that's GF. I don't know if it was stopping for you guys like it was stopping for me, but
No, it was playing right through to me. Maybe the chat will let us know if it was, but it was playing flawless,
okay. I think it's my
flawless
internet
me for
connection
me.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perhaps.
I'm good. I'm streaming from a hotel in Gander, so I can't imagine the speed here is super fast.
Right. Well,
Well,
anyway,
I assure you,
that's sort of GF in a nutshell.
It is, yes, and you heard it here, folks. GF does not mean girlfriend. That was a clever little joke there at the beginning. Excellent, and we do have another video for George Fisher before we begin the presentation, so I'll get that queued up as well.
Is it before Tim speaks? There's
Yes,
another video. Okay,
that's right.
so this is more specifically about the Flotra Mag.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. Very good. We should jump into that. John, you'll be around at the end just in case there's questions. Doesn't seem to be the case, but stick around just in case.
I can't believe there won't be questions.
So many questions. It's hard to answer.
So many questions.
So many
Yeah,
to choose
sure.
from.
Roll the tape.
Okay.
All right, so I will play the next video, the Flotra video.
Okay, back.
And there it is.
There it is. So now we're going to hear from Tim, correct?
That's right. So we'll start his presentation right away.
All right.
And we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Tim Chong. I'm from Joe Fisher Signet, located in Urbandale, California. Today, I'm going to introduce the Flowchart Mag 2581, the product introduction that happening in May 2021. This is the 2581 Flowchart Mag. It's a full bore plastic PVC inline style mag meter. Material coming in is the PVC body with a titanium grade 2 or Hastelloy C276. That's the electrode to monitor the flow velocity. And this is no moving part because this is a magnetic flow meter. And it comes with the FKM or EPDM shield available with different part number. And this is basically because of the plastic, they're going to be a 2 or 3 times lighter than the traditional metal full bore mag meter in the market. Every flowchart mag that we ship is a factory calibrated with the certified plus or minus 1% of reading accuracy. And basically, it reduces straight run requirement, mostly ideal for final effluent line and wellhead and then skid manufacturing. The product release available for DN25, which is 1 inch. DN40 is 1.5 inch. DN50 is 2 inch. DN80 is 3 inch. And DN100 is a 4 inch. We offer both ASTM, which is the US or Canadian standard, and also the matrix pipe size, which is start with the DN that mostly used in Europe. We also offer this capability with the Bluetooth 4.0 connection that support the iOS and Android mobile phone for a simple user configuration. So basically, you could configure the Flowchart Mag 2581 directly from your mobile phone and detect a partially filled pipe. Basically, most of the mag meter require a full pipe in the process, but in this particular 2581 is partially filled pipe could detect the condition of the flow velocity. It's no pressure drop, and then could detect either a reverse flow direction or the forward flow direction. So if the customer see the reverse flow direction and they do not like it, they could configure directly with their mobile phone or directly with the 0252 configuration tool. One device with 3 different outputs. So it's a field selectable. We offer frequency or digital S3L and also analog 40-20 milliamp output, either passive or active, directly to the PLC. So again, this is really unique for the water treatment skid manufacturing, for chemical dosing, and also for any chemical processing in the application. On the digital S3L or the frequency output, you can select directly to the configuration tool or directly from your mobile phone, which is the Bluetooth app. When we ship each of the Flowchart Mag, we ship the default is the frequency. So the customer could change to frequency or S3L. And on the analog output, we have active and passive output. So that can be select directly to your mobile phone or directly from the 0252 configuration tool that you connect to your PC and change the configuration. So again, the default that we ship from the factory, we set it as passive. So each of the flowchart body is pre-calibrated with a K factor, which is traceable to NIST certificate. And now look at the overview of this flowchart Mag 2581. So again, I mentioned earlier, we offer a DN25, which is 1 in. This is the Schedule 80 PVC pipe. The electrode come with either titanium or Hastelloy C, and then with a union fitting. The shield either FKM or EPDM. So we do have a different part number for the customer to order either titanium or Hastelloy C with FKM or EPDM. This is the DN40, 1.5 inch, also come with a union connection. 2 inch DN50 also come with union connection. Only different is the DN80, which is 3 inch Schedule 80. Again, the electrode, we offer 2 material, titanium or Hastelloy C. But on the plastic connection, this is the Vanstone flange. So again, from 1 inch, 1.5 and 2 inch is union, and 3 inch is Vanstone flange, come with FKM or EPDM. Also, the 4 inch DN100 is the Vanstone flange plastic connection. And this is the overview. Look how the flowchart Mag look. You have on the screen showing on your mobile phone. Your mobile phone showing the totalizer and also light reading directly from your mobile phone with the flow velocity. And this is the blank electronic housing, same for all sizes. And this could send the signal, which is S2L digital signal or frequency, directly from a flowchart Mag to a transmitter or to the controller. Active or passive 40-20 milliamp directly to PLC or charge recorder. And then you could read locally via the Bluetooth app. We support iOS and then also Android. So to talk about theory operation, how this flowchart Mag work is similar to the traditional Mag meter that in the market. Basically, you have water flow directly to your pipe, and then you have the electrode that detect the magnetic field, and then the coil which generate the voltage directly from a magnetic field and then also from a flow velocity to give you how much water went into the pipe, and then we'll display on the transmitter or the controller, or display directly from your mobile phone the flow rate and also the totalizing. And some application that I'm talking about, the target application, mostly this is the information that we took is mainly for our GF internal use, for our sales guy to visiting the customer and then show the information to the OEM or to the customer. So the market potential for this is industrial wastewater, municipal water treatment, landfill, chemical processing industry, energy, and OEM. Because of the plastic body, everything is plastic material, and this is a very unique selling benefit against the metal Mag meter in the market. And also good for the OEM water treatment skid because it does require a short inlet and outlet. And then most of the water treatment skid require a very space constraint, and then they require short inlet and short outlets from the process. And we've been selling this flowchart Mag in the market since 2019. And this is some of the example that we're gathering for a case study. The first one you see is the flow control chemical dosing. So basically, this is a cosmetic manufacturing. They're using a FlowChartMax 2580, 2581, monitoring the chemical, which is the hydrogen peroxide, 50% concentration, and this come out mixed with the water for the process using for the cosmetic product. The second picture, which is chemical blading and batching, this is in Europe, mostly for batching a container, chemical container, and then deliver that to the customer. The third picture, the flow dilution system. So this is the system that make with chemical and water, dilute it, and then send the signal to the actual GF actuation valve, and then also to the controller. The one in the bottom, industrial effluent, this is mostly industrial process. The effluent, which is the water that's draining out to the process, they need to monitor how much effluent water coming out from the plant. The fifth one, which is the wastewater treatment plant, this is mostly is the wastewater process from the production line and go to the wastewater tank. So they need to monitor that. And the last one, which is the print circuit board manufacturing, this is mostly very nasty, dirty water that they need to monitor how much water they dump out. And then that water going directly to the neutralization tank instead of to the sewage. So this is some of the examples that we did case study for under the FlowChartMax when we launched the product back in 2019. And also some of the application that the salesperson need to avoid, mainly is the high pressure and high temperature, and then also high concentration of chemical process. So we just kind of like inform the salesman, do not sell into this type of application. Most of this application is more on the metal mag meter instead of the plastic mag meter. Competitor analysis, we just share that information. Couple of competitors, we compare with the plastic material, and also we compare with the metal material of the mag meter. And some ordering information, like we offer 2 different material of the electrode and 2 different material of the shearing, which is FKM or EPDM. And this is our traditional manufacturing part number, and also the 9-digit code number for the customer to order, and then also the description. And 102. The last 3 digits of 102, this is the EPDM material. And we also offer some accessory. So even though we ship the product, for example, in 1 inch, we ship the product with a union connection. And in the packaging, we're also including the metric union end for the customer to adapt, changing from ASTM to a union end matrix. The 3 end, and then this is the 4 end for all the accessory. And now the setup. So either 2 things that you could do the setup. One is directly with your mobile phone, or directly with your PC, which is require a 0252 configuration tool. So today I'm going to talk about the mobile phone connection. You could download directly the app from a Apple App Store. That's the iOS version. All you need to kind of like scan the barcode and then download the app directly to your mobile phone. And this is Android. Log on to the Google Play and download the Android app. So when you download the app, and you have to pair, which is pairing the unit with your mobile phone, basically you need to enter the code number, which is the last 6 digits of the product serial number that you need to pairing the device with your mobile phone. So after you pairing, you have the information directly from your mobile phone. You can see the loop, which is the 4020 milliamp output, analog output directly to the PLC, the information. And then also you could change the output mode from the default value from the factory. So again, the default value from the factory that we ship, we set a frequency, and then 4020 milliamp, we set a passive. So if you have a PLC taking active signal, you have to change the output mode to the active. And always, when you are pairing the flowchart mag with your mobile phone, you need to read the information from the flowchart mag, because all the calibration data, all the information stored in the inside the flow body. And when you connect your mobile phone, you need to read the information, and then you can see to all the information from your mobile phone. And every time you're changing a configuration, make sure you save it and you write it back to the flow body. So even though you save it directly to your from your mobile phone, but you did not write it the information that you changed to the flow body. So already you read the information, you make a correction, you write that information to the flow body, and you save the information. And then if you want to load it again, you can click on say load, and then load the information which is you already saved to the flow body. So on here, you see the application setting. So application setting basically to show you the flow unit, the totalizer unit, the K factor, which is you don't have to mess with that, the averaging sensitivity, the low flow cutoff, and then also the direction of the flow under the application tab. The next tab, which is the loop, which is your 4020 milliamp output. And then the third one is calibration. If you want to calibrate your flowchart mag, you could do so, but most of the unit that's shipped out from the factory is already done calibration. Information, this is tell you the information of your flowchart mag 2581. It show you the device tag, the serial number, the 9-digit code number, the model number, and then also the material and the sizes under the information tab for iOS or for Android. And then this is how you're gonna see directly from your mobile phone. So you have the flowchart mag, the 6-digit number, which is the product serial number, and also you have the light, which is the static light, either blue or either red or either purple. That indication the activity happening inside the flow body. And you going to show you the flow rate, which is display how much gallon of water or how much liter of water in the process. It show you the totalizer. One is permanent totalizer, which is you cannot reset. The second one is resettable totalizer. And then I'll show the graph, which is the light reading from the flowchart mag. And this type of information, you could share those with your customer, or you could save the information to directly to your mobile phone. And this just basically guide you how you save the information and how you send the information directly from your mobile phone as a text message to your customer, and then also the file that you save to your mobile phone. Okay, this is how you change the configure your sensor, and then this is how you're gonna clone. So basically, if one of the OEM has a multiple unit, and each of the unit has the same calibration information, so all they have to do is just doing one, and then clone the information to the second, third, and fourth unit. And again, each of the flow chart shipped from the factory is already calibrated, but sometimes the customer adding the chemical to the process, the viscosity of the fluid was changing, and then they want to do the calibration, which they could do the calibration directly from the mobile phone. Either two methods of calibration. One is the RayCal, the other one is a volumetric calibration. And the second setup is directly with the O252, which is you need to connect to your PC. And then it's the same method of calibration. When you connect to your PC, you select the Flowchart Mag 2581. And then we'll give you a default of the sizes. 1 inch, 1.5, 2, 3, and 4 inch, which is DN25 to DN100. And then the same thing, application tab, similar information on your mobile phone, and then the loop, which is your 4020, and your information of the flowchart mag, and then monitoring basically the light graph or directly from your mobile phone. So you could save the file under the .csv, and then you could send that file, save it, and send it to your customer. And calibration. So again, RayCal, volumetric calibration. So now we're talking about the specification of this Flowchart Mag 2581. So the weathered material in the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned the weathered material is right now we only offer PVC. The electrode, we have titanium, which is grade 2 or Hastelloy C276. Shield with the FKM or EPDM, and this is the Schedule 80 PVC. From a 1, 1.5, and 2 inch come with union. 3 and 4 is a Vanstone flange. The flow range is 0.02 meter per second, which is 0.07 feet per second to 10 meter per second, equivalent to 30 feet per second. Accuracy plus or minus 1%, plus 0.01 meter per second. Repeatability is plus or minus 0.5%. And the power requirement to power up this flowchart mag is a DC 24 volt, maximum 24 watts. And then there's a regulated power supply. So you could connect incorrectly, which is the reverse direction protection up to 35 VDC. Because of the plastic material, the outbreak temperature and pressure is minus 10 degrees C to 60 degrees C, which is 14 F to 140 F. And the median temperature is 0 to 60 degrees C, which is 32 F to 140 F. And different pressure rating, again, different temperature. So this is the specification that's including on the literature that we ship with the product. And each of the flowchart mag that we ship is already have a calibration information that's stored in the flow body. So this is just the information that we share with the customer when they order either 1 inch or 2 inch or 3 inch. And the upstream and downstream, mostly we talk about is the inlet and the outlet. So upstream of the water is required 3 times the pipe diameter, and then the outlet is 2 times the ID. So basically you have a reducer, or you have a 2 90-degree elbow, 3-dimensional, or you have a pump that's next to your process. The inlet, which is the upstream, is only 3 times, and downstream is 2 times. So each of the different configuration, inlet and outlet are the same, 3 and 2. And then the one that I mentioned that you need to connect to your PC, which is the 3-0252, the configuration tool that directly you connect the FlowChartMag 2581 to a 3.0252, and then on one side is a USB connection directly to your PC. And on the FlowChartMag, they have two indicators, which is the two LED. One, it gives you the static light, which is the condition of your FlowChartMag. The second LED is the connection of your Bluetooth. So when you connect to your mobile phone, if you make a connection, it turns green. If there's no connection, it turns white. And the rest of the LED, which is the static light, it gives you what happened to your FlowChartMag with different color scheme. And on this particular product, when we launch, we also support the cell company with the toolbox. In the toolbox, we have the data sheet, the instruction manual, and also the setup guide, how to set up the FlowChartMag. So startup guide, data sheet, and manual. Along with that, we also support our ASM with a cell demo box. So on the demo box, the ASM could carry and show it to the customer, show and tell to the customer with the product inside the demo box. And inside the demo box, it has the cable, and it also has the power supply, and then also have all the literature come along with the product. And that's my presentation. If you have any question, we could take a question, and if I'm able to answer that, I will answer. If not, I will document that and will reply back to you. Thank you.
We are back and both muted. Alrighty, so that was the presentation for George Fisher, and I will pull John in.
Okay. I don't know if Tim's on too. Hey, John.
Hey, Justin.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, if anybody has a paddle wheel flow meter in their chemical feed system, like alum, hypo, ferric, etc., get rid of it. I mean, really, those things, the paddle wheel is going to get gummed up as the chemical salts out, and the FlowChartMag is really perfect for that application.
Yeah, anything where you've got those liquids that can salt out, sodium hydroxide, alum, hypochlorite, ferric chloride,
Right.
all sort of standard municipal chemistry, but always difficult to handle. So this is a good product for those.
Yeah, like a stainless, the traditional stainless full port mag would not be able to handle the chemistry, and the little paddle wheel meters would just get gummed up, right? So this is probably the best application you were saying earlier, and I see that.
Yeah, no moving parts makes it handy.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is, from a price point perspective, although I probably shouldn't tell you this, compared to the big guys, big manufacturers on the market that are well known in the full port mag world, your FlowChartMag comes at a very nice price point too, a lot more cost competitive.
Means we should raise the prices. But,
well, that's exactly what I said. I shouldn't have told you. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it does. It comes in at
we know where our prices are at. We're trying to make a mag meter for a good price. Something that represents its quality and everything else. So,
and it's, what is it? It's 3 times the pipe inside diameter in. That's the distance of straight pipe run you need, and 2 times the inside diameter out, which is the distance of straight pipe you need in and out of that mag. And I don't think there's anything else on the market that is that tight of a footprint. So from a retrofit standpoint, it really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, not in the mag meter world anyway, right? So with mag meters, it's common to have those smaller lay lengths, right? Which that makes them ideal for skidded types of equipment. But yeah, it's you know, the mag meter technology has been around for a long time. Just doing it all in plastic hasn't.
That's right. Yeah. Very neat. All right. Well, I think we've gone over, which is okay. I don't know if there's any questions. Mark, are you still hiding in the somewhere in the netherverse there? There he is.
Yes. I'm still here, so there's no questions. Thank you very much. I see that Tim was also trying to join us. I think he had a little bit of an issue connecting, but if ever we do get comments or questions, we'll collect them and send them over to you guys.
Yeah, so thank you very much, John and George Fisher, silver sponsors, $1,000 to the Clean Water Education Foundation. Very much appreciated.
Well, thank you guys. We're happy to be part of it, and yeah, it's a great event. So it fits into everything. George Fisher has been contributing to Clean Water Fund and Water for People for years, right? This is just an extension of that for us. So it's a good cause, and we're happy to be part of it.
Yeah, and we're trying to really make it a local flavor to it, right? So yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, to have something uniquely Canadian. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, John.
All righty. So I think we're down to our last presentation now, aren't we?
We are, yeah. So folks are stuck with me again here.
Yes, sir. So
that's going to change. That's okay. I can adapt on the fly and present here.
Excellent. Wonderful. So the next presentation is going to be from Proline Fittings, and we're the ones putting on, this show, and we're the ones producing it. So we're very, very happy to do it. It's interesting. It was our first foray into LinkedIn Live, which was interesting on its own. So I'm pretty happy how things turned out.
Yes. Yep. Also, for this presentation, Mark, am I sharing
yep.
my is that what I'm doing here? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I will do that.
And while you pull up your presentation, I will entertain everyone with my green cup of tea.
The Proline cup.
Well, it's the same color as my green screen, so you can see right through me.
Very neat. Okay, so here we go. I'll share Mark and my going video file slides. Okay, and you have.
It might be too large, your presentation for the. So go ahead and are you able to share your screen instead?
Yeah. It's saying upload file. No, I don't want to do that. Share screen. Okay, that I can do. Share screen.
And we want to thank everybody for joining us today. We very much appreciate your presence and your participation in the second annual event. And without further ado, maybe one more, because I am impressed by my green cup here, so I will flash it again, but I will make myself scarce and let Justin do his live, unlike everyone else. And we do love all of our sponsors and presenters, but Proline Fittings is actually doing it live. So
please, I would like to have some more ado.
Okay, so
is it showing properly? Because all I see is my PowerPoint right now. We're good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we're good to go.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Mark. So now we're going to talk about ProFlare, which is actually a branded product by Proline Fittings. This is our own sort of creation. We're going to talk about eliminating leaks and optimizing your chem feed system. So we've gone around into different municipalities in Ontario primarily, but also in Quebec and the Atlantic, and we've talked about ProFlare, and we've made some happy operators, we'll say, by sort of improving their chem feed system internally and giving them all the tools to do that. And we're going to get into a bit more of the details. Okay, so quick presentation outline. We're going to talk about common problems in chemical piping systems. And then we're going to talk specifically about sodium hypochlorite and some other chemicals that you'd come across in water wastewater treatment. And then we're going to talk about ProFlare, our fluoropolymer tubing system. And then we're going to get into a bit more of the details about ProFlare and its installation method. And then we're going to talk about LOX 8 hypopaste. So this is a chemical thread sealant. We'll get into some details on. We'll touch on some valves and then a quick overview of some other products available from Proline Fittings. Okay, so I'm thinking for folks out there that are working in water wastewater treatment plants, you've probably seen these kinds of images where you have leaky stalactites hanging down from your solvent welded connections. So most chem feed systems found in water wastewater treatment plants are manufactured from rigid PVC piping. And in some cases, also unpigmented polyethylene. So that's like a white, more opaque kind of tubing. Both of these materials are widely used and accepted because of their low initial investment cost. Pretty inexpensive to use them. Unfortunately, both PVC and polyethylene become brittle with exposure to chlorine. And some of you have maybe experienced this where, you see a visible leak like the ones pictured here on the slide. You go to cut out that piece of pipe and fix that leak. And just by the movement and disturbing that pipe system, you've got more leaks that present themselves. It's almost a domino effect. So you're constantly chasing leaks. So PVC is the world's third most widely produced synthetic plastic polymer after polyethylene and polypropylene. Again, it's relatively inexpensive and it's very useful in a lot of industries. It's also readily available, although that's been impacted in the last year. In municipal water wastewater treatment plants, PVC is commonly selected as the material of choice for disinfecting chemicals, flocculants, and coagulants. PVC is misunderstood to be easy to put together with solvent cementing. While it's true, solvent cementing is not too complicated. There are a lot of issues that could occur. So we're talking about solvent welding Schedule 80 PVC in a chem feed system or chemical system. You really have to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. So, i.e., pipe chamfering. You have to consider ambient temperatures when you're solvent welding. There's considerations for the primer that's used, how much primer. There's considerations for the solvent, the type of solvent, and how much solvent is used. We can also talk about cure times, right, is another thing that you have to consider. In our cure times, are you waiting the proper cure times before putting pressure to the system? And so all of these things are human-controlled variables, and each of them can have an impact on the success of a solvent weld joint. So especially when we're talking about chemical feed systems, okay? Over time, common coagulants and flocculants, as well as disinfectants, such as sodium hypochlorite, ferric or ferrous chloride, alum or aluminum sulfate, right, PAC, polyaluminum chloride, and others will attack the integrity of a solvent welded connection and lead to failures such as the ones pictured here. I think I don't know if I've ever been to a water or wastewater treatment plant where they're injecting these kinds of chemicals, and I've not seen a leak on PVC or polyethylene. Threaded connections actually have a similar issue, and what it is the impurities and the fillers found in like pipe dopes and common like plumbing pipe dopes and pipe thread compounds. They react with the hydroxide as well as the chlorine and create a similar looking crystalline structure. So again, this is in a threaded connection as well. Continuous vibrations from an injection pump can also cause a brittle pipe to leak. So if you're running a basic solenoid driven dosing pump and you do not have any kind of pulsation dampener, it's like a constant hammer on your pipe system, and as they become brittle, they can leak. So having a pulsation dampener is also important. Another common issue is solids formation, right? So this is This is typically a salt formation with these kinds of chemicals, and the quality of chemical can have an impact on this, as well as, again, the type of thread sealant and tapes that are used. So these solids can impact, of course, the performance of a back pressure valve, right? Your solids can get gummed up inside of your pressure sustaining valves, as well as check valves, injection quills, other components within your chem feed system where you can have a clog, essentially. These solids can form and create issues. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit more detailed here on sodium hypochlorite. I hear this called a number of different things: bleach, hypochlorine, liquid bleach, sodium hypo. There's a lot of different sort of terminology, acronyms, whatnot that people will talk about sodium hypochlorite, but yes, sodium hypochlorite is the proper name, NaOCl. Sodium hypochlorite is a solution made from reacting chlorine gas with sodium hydroxide. So let's look at those two things. Sodium hydroxide, NaOH, that's the chemical. I don't know if anyone has seen Breaking Bad, there's that bathtub scene. That's sodium hydroxide. And chlorine gas, that was used in trench warfare as one of the first uses of chlorine gas. So both of those chemicals are particularly nasty. And so when you react chlorine gas with sodium hydroxide, you get sodium hypochlorite or bleach. So sodium hypochlorite has a lot of uses. It's an excellent disinfectant and antimicrobial agent. Sodium hypochlorite solutions vary widely in concentration. Household bleach, so the stuff you'd have under your counter in the laundry room, is typically 4% in concentration, and then industrial or municipal concentrations are between 12 to 14%. And just as a sort of segue, I used to, back in the early 2000s, call on a Colgate-Palmolive plant in Edmonton, and they manufactured a high-strength concentration sodium hypochlorite by reacting chlorine with sodium hydroxide. And there was this plant manager there who is sort of a wise old sage kind of fellow, that he knew the ins and outs of the entire plant forwards and backwards. And we talk about sodium hypochlorite, and he would say, there is no way that anyone can produce sodium hypochlorite stronger than 15% concentration. And I've heard it out there where people will say, oh, I've got 16, 17% concentration. It's just not possible. It degrades so quickly. It actually off-gases chlorine, and the higher the concentration, the faster it degrades. Coincidentally, that plant was bought by Clorox, and Clorox only bought it to discontinue the household bleach bottling line. And then later, not much later, Clorox sold it to ClearTech. So ClearTech today in Edmonton runs that hypo plant. But another thing of important note is that all of the control valves in that plant are manufactured from solid monoblock PTFE Teflon. So they're not messing around. They're using Teflon on all of their valves there. Okay, so again, I mentioned the stability of hypochlorite decreases with higher concentrations. Also heat, ultraviolet light exposure, and contaminations from metals also accelerates the decomposition. Sodium hypochlorite is a strong oxidizing agent that will react readily with acids, organics, and heavy metals. So again, do not use standard pipe thread sealants or tapes, because the hypochlorite will react with them. Mixing anything with hypochlorite can be extremely dangerous, which everyone probably already knows. But if you have contact between hypochlorite and other treatment plant chemicals such as alum, ferric, or sodium bisulfate, they can cause an uncontrolled explosive release of energy, heat, and chlorine gas. The sodium hydroxide present in the bleach solution is consumed by acidic compounds. As a result, the chlorine gas is able to evolve from the solution, i.e. off-gassing. So this is sort of the science behind the leaks, right? It's like chlorine off-gassing that occurs. Chlorine off-gassing can cause effects, obviously problems with valves, pipes, fittings, and usually results in a salting effect that you see where the white crystalline, you have those formations. And there's a little note at the bottom there about the American Industrial Hygiene Association recommends exposure level of sodium hypochlorite solutions at 2 milligrams per meter cubed as a 15-minute time-weighted average. So this is what's acceptable. Okay. Now let's talk about ferric chloride. That's another one. It's a common coagulant and flocculant. Ferric chloride is a disinfectant compound of iron and chlorine. It's actually produced primarily as a byproduct from the steel industry. So steel is the process they call pickling steel. And of course, they pickle it in a hydrochloric, a strong, hot hydrochloric solution. And that hydrochloric solution pulls the iron in, giving you ferric chloride. It's most commonly used in wastewater treatment, again, as a flocculant. And it's very corrosive to metals. Also concrete. Ferric chloride can wipe out concrete pretty quickly. And of course, human skin. Similar to
Sorry, Justin.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I butt in here for just a moment?
Sure.
We actually do have a question from the chat for you. And I don't know if we want to go to a different topic before we answer this question. Is it okay if I ask you the question?
Yeah. Ask the question.
Okay, so Marlon asks, where is the information about the proper solvent and primer to use on PVC for hypo? Also, what is the best thread sealant to use to stop a leak over time?
Okay, so that's great. Thank you, Marlon. Well, first thing I would say about proper solvent weld to use is don't use it. And I'll get into that in a couple more slides here for sure. So yeah, if you have to solvent weld, absolutely you got to follow the procedures, and I can send that over to you. But if you can avoid solvent welding, that is the best thing, and we have the system for that. But with regards to threading, there is a product called Loxate. It's recommended by the Chlorine Institute, and I'm going to talk more about it shortly. It actually works. I've had it installed on many applications now where they're running 14% bleach and at the threads, 0 leaks, and we're 4 years in now. But they've been around for a long time too with this product, primarily selling it towards oxygen gas service. And to get oxygen gas approval is very difficult. So that's kind of been their primary market, but it also has this wonderful chemical capability. And so we'll talk more about that. And certainly, Marlon, I appreciate the question. But I'll keep going here. So, yeah, we talked about how ferric chloride can cause similar problems. We jump into other chemicals. Again, you've got polyaluminum chloride, alum, calcium thiosulfate or captors used in dechlorination, hydrofluorocyclic acid is fluoride, another, that's a really nasty one too. Again, ProFlare is the solution for these chemicals, and we're going to get into that very shortly here. Okay, so the ProFlare chemical tubing system. It eliminates chemical leaks common in solvent welded and threaded PVC piping by utilizing a flared connection between the fittings and the valves. So rather than having a solvent weld or a threaded connection, we're flaring the tube onto the fitting and using a compression nut to join it. Now, it's important to note that there's no ferrule and there's no metal that's going into this compression connection, and the seal is being formed at the shoulder of the tube and the fitting. We'll get into more details on that shortly. So this is comprised of our proprietary branded NSF approved fluorinated ethylene polyethylene tube. So it's very similar to Teflon, which is used, it's chemically inert and it does not become brittle over time. It's very fast and easy to install. You can create a flared connection in less than 30 seconds, rated to over 150 PSI. It's safe, right? That's important. It's very reliable and hassle-free life expectancy. with your all of your chem feed system. The other thing that's important is that there's no expensive tooling. That's and we're going to get into that, how quick and easy it is to put together. Our ProFlare system can be compatible with any manufacturer's valves. However, it's designed to work with George Fisher valves. We believe that they have the best valve on the market. Our ProFlare fluoropolymer tube comes in continuous coils of over 1,000 feet. So if you have an injection point that, say, you're running hypo to your zebra mussel control, could be 200 feet out into the water, we can run a continuous coil all the way to your injection point, and you'll have no connections other than just the tubing running out there. Also, our fluoropolymer tube does not leach any impurities, which can react with typical treatment plant chemicals. Okay. Yes, so here we're entering into another layer of inception with an embarrassing old video of me, but it's good because it gives some close-ups on how stuff's put together. So I'll run this video now.
Hi everyone, I'm Justin with Proline Fittings. Welcome to our Clean Water series. Today we're going to talk to you about a very exciting new product called ProFlare. ProFlare is a fluoropolymer tubing system.
This video is about 4 years old.
Commonly found in water and wastewater treatment. Typically, chemicals such as sodium hypo and alums are piped in PVC, which tends to leak. ProFlare does not. This is a long-term, permanent solution for handling all of your chemicals. It's quick and easy to install. Let me show you how it works. The first thing that we want to do is get our heat gun started. Okay, so now our heat gun is warming up. Next thing we want to do is make sure that we have a nice, clean, and flush cut. So we have a nice square cut. Our heat gun is warm enough. And now we're going to look at our clock. We want to warm this tubing up for about 20 seconds. And we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to turn it as we go. And after 20 seconds, the tubing will start to go clear. And then once it's done, we simply remove from the heat and apply it to our mandrel with some force. So now we can remove this from our mandrel. We have a successful flare. We can now apply this to our fitting. So here we have our completed flare. And as you can see, it only took about 20 seconds to be ready for full line pressure. Here we have our ProFlare tubing connected to a true union ball valve. Proline Fittings is proud to offer you all of the necessary components to connect you from the injection pump to the injection point.
Okay. So there you can see it's very simple to make a flared connection. And what we do at Proline is we'll consult with municipal end users, operators who are tired of repairing PVC connections. And we'll work with you to replace your entire system. Like, we can do takeoffs based solely off of pictures and create detailed lists on all of the components that you require. We can provide the training, and then you can essentially do all of your own skids by basically using what's there and redesigning them using ProFlare. Very simple to do, and then you'll never have to replace a leaking joint again. So installing ProFlare, we're going to get into details. Again, you're widening the end of the ProFlare tube such that it can be inserted over the shoulder of the flare fitting, and then the flare tube nut secures down onto the fitting. I guess it's obvious, but you want to make sure you have your flare nut on the tube with the threads pointing towards the flare that you're about to produce, because of course, if you don't have the flare nut on there, you're going to have to cut your flare off and do it again. Flaring tube can be accomplished in several different techniques. The best practice covered in this presentation consists of hot flaring with a heat gun and mandrel. There is a sort of set of reverse pliers that do make a flare. However, experience tells me that it's not a consistent flare. It's not as nice. I guess consistent is the word when you're using the heat gun mandrel method. So tube preparation, I mentioned this in the video. It's very important to make sure you have a 90-degree cut on that tube. We have a new flare fitting that includes a barb collet that allows you to get away with a bit more of an angle to your tubing. But by all intents and purposes, you want to just make sure you have a nice square cut when you're cutting the tubing. Okay, so using the heat gun, you're heating up the tube, and really any heat gun will work. You can go to any big box store and get a heat gun for less than $100. Forming the tubing over the mandrel is you're just using a bit of force. I recommend using a stainless steel mandrel. It actually helps to cool the tubing at the same time. Pardon me. Also, one thing that's important to note is you'll find you want to use some type of rubber, like a grease monkey glove, like a nitrile glove, because it'll help you grip the tubing. That's the other advantage of ProFlare tubing, is that Teflon is still in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's slipperiest solid, right? Teflon coatings on pans and whatnot. So the advantage there is that any of these solids, the salts that tend to form with these chemicals that we use in water wastewater treatment, will pass right through the tubing. Of course, you've got to pay attention to the size of tube and the mandrel that you're using, but it's obvious when you're doing it. And then you can contact Proline for more details on the flaring method. So there are some minimum tube wall thicknesses you have to pay attention to. We learned the hard way that 0.62 wall thickness at 1/4 inch is too thick. You end up sort of it's doable, but very difficult to flare 0.62 wall thickness at 1/4 inch. It's essentially the ratio of diameter to wall thickness is such that when you heat it up, the flare end kind of breaks down on you, end up with a kink. Doesn't look right. So at 1/4 inch, 0.47 tube wall thickness is what you want. And then beyond that, from 1/4 to, from 3/8 to 1 inch, you want to use decimal 0.62 inch wall thickness. Using the heat gun, again, you just heat up the end of the tube, kind of rotating it around. It's a bit of a blend of art and science here, right? You're sort of monitoring the end of the tube to watch it turn kind of translucent and then clear almost, but you want to move it away from the heat before it gets too clear. So, you do 2 or 3 flares and then you got it. It's pretty straightforward. So again, quickly and before the tubing has a chance to cool, you want to push it over top of the mandrel and hold it for 20 to 30 seconds. You could probably get away with less time than that even, but it's not a very long time, 20, 30 seconds to have it cool. And then allow the tubing to cool on the mandrel for 2 to 3 minutes before removing it. Again, this one, if you were 1 minute, say, on the mandrel, and then you put the tubing directly onto the fitting, I haven't seen failures when that is done. So connect the tubing to the fitting. You want to insert the flare fitting into the newly flared end of the tubing. The fit should be nice and snug. In most cases, there will be a gap at the end of the tubing and the threads on the fitting. You can see on where the threads start on that fitting. Having a little bit of gap there is good. It's okay. And then you just want to hand tighten that flare nut onto your fitting or onto your valve. Hand tightening is generally good. There are torque spec guidelines that you can use here if you have a torque wrench to tighten that flare nut. But all intents and purposes, it's not required. You're just hand tightening, get it nice and snug, and it's good to go. If you fire up your system, you see it kind of beating there, then you just tighten it up a bit more. But you can use a torque wrench and have specific torques on that. Okay, so you're connecting the tube to the fitting. You want to pay attention to the gap. We have tolerances for, you can see the A dimension there is the gap between the end of the flare and sort of where those threads start. So you don't want to have too much of a gap, right? That just means you didn't bottom out your flare on the mandrel. So as long as you're bottoming out your flare, the tubing onto that mandrel, you're going to have the proper bell, which will eliminate any of that gap issue. And again, same thing with the flare length. So that's the depth of the bell, essentially, that B dimension. So we do have.
Sorry, I was just going to interrupt real quick. Marlon has another question, Justin. So should I wait till the end to ask the question, or do you want to field it right now?
Well, you interrupted me, so might as well field it now. I'm kidding. No, I'm happy to answer it.
This is it's a live stream. We have to kind of try to answer the questions as they come.
No, let's answer the questions. I'm ready.
Wonderful. So Marlon asks, what is the size of ball valves that you have to use with the Proline tubing? Our hypo panels are 1/4 inch, but ball valves are 1/2 inch.
Yes.
He also Marlon also says also need to connect on back pressure valves extra.
Right. Yep. No. Great questions. So it's true that ball valves, industrial ball valves are in PVC are limited to 1/2 inch. They don't go below that. Although you can get lab cocks made of PVC that are right down to 1/8 of an inch. And they typically will have a PTFE a Teflon seat. The disadvantage with a lab cock, though, is that they don't have a removable carrier. So they're not really a maintenance-friendly valve. So typically what we see is a true union ball valve at 1/2 inch in diameter. And then what we provide is a 1/4 inch flare outlet. So you would have, as you say, a 1/4 inch tubing system, but it's just connected to a 1/2 inch valve. There really is no issue with that, other than it might cost a bit more to have a 1/2 inch valve as opposed to, say, a 1/4 inch lab cock. But I think it's better to have the versatility of a true union connection, as well as the versatility of being able to remove the carrier and access the internal components of that ball valve. So that is the sort of the best solution right now, is to use a 1/2 inch ball valve with a 1/4 inch ProFlare outlets coming out of it. And I think, was there a two-parter? Was there another part to that? Oh yeah, the back pressure valve you said something about.
Well, it was just a comment. It says also need to connect on back pressure valves extra. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So on back pressure, and I actually have a slide on back pressure valves. So please stay tuned for that, Marlon. You're going to like it. On back pressure, pressure sustaining pressure valves, we have ProFlare outlets right down to 1/4 inch in diameter. But same story there. You need to use a 1/2 inch valve. I would actually, even if there were a 1/4 inch valve available for a back pressure / relief valve, I would still recommend sizing that valve up. And the reason is there's quite a bit of flow restriction that goes on purpose in a back pressure valve. And when you're dealing with chemicals and chemistries that salt out, it's better to have a bigger sealing area and flow path, if you will. So sort of, it's better. I think that kind of answers the question, but we'll get into more details on that very shortly. Okay, so that does it with installing ProFlare. Very straightforward. Talked about the wall thicknesses, heat gun, how to flare, connecting to the tube, then connecting to the fitting, and now we're into the slide on Loxate hypopaste. So this is manufactured by a company called Floramics, actually. We met them at a trade show in Chicago years ago. And I couldn't believe that no one had really taken this product on in a wastewater treatment landscape. And I think, well, it's expensive. We'll just say that right away. When you're comparing this to other thread sealants, it's way more money. We'll say that right away. but it actually works. And their focus with this product is on oxygen gas service. So I didn't realize this because I wasn't really involved in that industry. But when you're talking bottled gases, particularly oxygen, it's very difficult to get approval to work with oxygen gas. And so that's kind of, the big corporations like Linde, Praxair, NASA. There's a bunch of companies that will standardize on LOX-8 paste for use with bottled gases. But it has this other application, which is on chemicals. And so, when you go into any water, wastewater plant where there's a threaded connection on sodium hypo or ferric or one of these chemicals, there's going to be leaks. And this stuff actually works and prevents that leak. And there are just, obviously, we talk about ProFlare and how excellent it works. And it does, but there are some instances where you just can't get away from a flared connection. You can't get away from a threaded connection. And so that's where we say to use LOX-8 when you run into those threads. So if you're connecting to your dosing pump, right, chances are there's going to be some threads there. You're going to want to use LOX-8. You're connecting into your calibration column, right? So you could use a flare by male MPT adapter, get into your calibration column. If you're connecting to a gauge or instrument, right? So same thing, use LOX-8 paste on your ProFlare by male MPT adapter, and then you can get into your gauges and instruments. And then finally at the injection quill is another one. So there are certain areas within your chem feed system where threads may be unavoidable, and this is the solution for those areas. You can see, well, this is a picture here. We've got LOX-8 on a sensor. This is now 4 years old. And so you can see we've got ProFlare tubing coming into the threads on this PVC T-fitting, and there's no leaks. Actually, over to the right, we've got sorry, my voice broke there. We've got a nice picture of a chlorine gas system. So chlorine gas, typically, there's still chlorine gas systems out there. And typically chlorine gas uses a polyethylene tubing. It's like a white, I mentioned it earlier, opaque tubing. And it uses a compression style of fitting with sometimes a metal ferrule in the fitting. And that tubing becomes very brittle with chlorine gas. Usually the tubing is replaced annually, sometimes more often than that. But I think it's a standard practice to replace the chlorine tubing every year. So we came in with LOX-8 and the ProFlare system and did a complete retrofit of chlorine gas system. It's now 4 years in as well, and they are experiencing 0 leaks. In fact, the operator used to say that whenever they replaced their PE tubing, for a solid week afterwards, their chlorine alarm would be going off because they'd have to go and fiddle around with the compression fittings that weren't quite sealing properly. So those chlorine sniffers are pretty sensitive. But with the ProFlare system, you can use it on chlorine gas, no problem, even on vacuum. And again, it won't become brittle because we're dealing with a fluoropolymer. On this chlorine gas application, they also used kind of overkill, but they also used LOX-8 on all the threads to just make it so that they really didn't want to have to go back and deal with it. I've got another client that uses LOX-8 on any kind of stainless application they have in their plant because of its anti-gouling properties. And as well, it doesn't harden. So with LOX-8, you can connect, disconnect, reconnect your fitting multiple times over and over, and the paste actually won't harden. So again, there's no impurities in there. It's very pure sealant that does not react with the hydroxide or the chlorine and giving you those stalactites. Here's some before-after pictures. So we've got a chem feed system here that we worked with the operator I should say the millwright to swap out. So we you could see actually, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Let's see if I can, there we go. I don't know if you can see my pointer, the cursor, but what they were doing is replacing PVC with CPVC, because some people say that CPVC has a better corrosion resistance to PVC. That's kind of arguable. I mean, PVC is polyvinyl chloride. CPVC is chlorinated polyvinyl chloride. It adds the purpose of CPVC is to give you more temperature range on the top end. I think it gives you about an extra 30 degrees C in terms of the hot temperatures that it can handle. But in terms of corrosion resistance, it doesn't really help you much. But they were replacing PVC with CPVC, still getting the leaks. In this case, they were returning sometimes every 2 weeks to replace a PVC connection that had started leaking. So we worked with them to develop a new ProFlare system. This is working directly with the municipality, and I think they saved a lot of money because this wasn't, it didn't have to be an elaborate sort of engineered system. It was already existing. They just had to replace it. So we worked with them to provide the ProFlare system and all of their components, right from the pumps, as you can see, right to the injection point. This is a cool one. So on the left here, you can see kind of the remnants of an old PVC system. Actually, there's parts of it are CPVC again. That this is in the middle of deconstruction. So there's a manifold that went between two hypo tanks. What we did was we consulted with them, and Proline designed this manifold, this custom manifold, and we had that manufactured and supplied it to them. So this custom manifold consists of IR fusion welded PFA Teflon rigid piping, actually. That's all IR fusion welded together. And so we provided it complete with flanges on either end, and then ProFlare outlets at the end of all of the sort of stub outs on the manifold. And so you're able to connect directly onto your True Union PVC ball valve and then run tubing from the manifold. They really appreciated having this. We added some extras on there for future expansion as well. So here we have some coils, the tubing coming out through the ceiling actually here. And you can see the remnants of the old spill where hypos kind of spilled all over this concrete wall. And now you've got your continuous coil running right to the injection point with our ProFlare tubing. You could see I've got some arrows pointed to the LOX 8 at your threaded connections. Should be another one going to this calibration column here. But you can see where all of these threads are, there's no leaks. And that's because of LOX 8. We have tubing. This is actually the millwright's idea. He used a cable tray to run the tubing, just like an electrical cable tray. And then we supply these clips that work nicely with our ProFlare tubing. And then he put an extra kind of steel grate over top of the cable tray just to protect it in your high traffic areas. But it was a nice solution. He keeps most of the tubing is high and out of the way overhead. Also looks great, and it's really easy to sort of maintain and see. Okay, so that's it for some photos there. And now I will talk about the 586 pressure sustaining valve. So a lot of folks out there in Canada particularly will have chem feed systems that have back pressure relief valves, right? It's a critical component. These are what supply the back pressure, the resistive force to your solenoid dosing pump, right? They need to have that force in order to work properly, something to push against. One of our competitors sort of had a head start with regards to this PRV. And they were the first to bring a True Union PRV to market in Canada, made by a company called Stube out of Germany. But George Fisher took that design, which was really, I don't know if revolutionary is a word, but it was the first one that was true union in design. They took it and sort of ran with it and made some design improvements. So the other PRV with that also happens to have an orange top uses bolts to hold the upper bonnet down onto the body. And so those bolts, well, a couple of things. First, they're cumbersome to deal with when we're talking about valve maintenance, right? You have to remove all of these internal components of the valve. Also, being that they're metal, we're dealing with chemistries here, and metal and these chemistries don't get along. So now we've got a corrosion point with these metal bolts. The other thing is that they expand and contract at different rates than plastic. So if you're, we're talking about stainless steel bolt versus a plastic body. When the temperature fluctuates, these things are going to expand and contract at different rates, and now you've got potential leakage. So with this George Fisher 586 pressure sustaining valve, the bonnet, which is a glass reinforced polyamide bonnet, that orange part is threaded right onto the body of the valve. So from a maintenance standpoint, it makes it much, much easier. Also, you don't have those other issues with the bolts that we talked about. But if you needed to maintain this valve, you can simply unthread the bonnet to access the internal components. The other important point about maintenance here is that the valve uses a cartridge design for its diaphragm. So this is the sealing area, right? So as we're dealing with these chemicals that tend to salt out and cause solid formation, we can remove this cartridge very simply, clean it, put it back in the line, put it back into service, or replace it very simply. I was at a water plant maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and they had this box with probably a dozen back pressure relief valves that were just in the box, and they were slated for repair. But I think they just kept replacing the valve, and they didn't bother to repair the old ones because someone has to do it, I guess. And it's somewhat labor intensive. So with this valve, it's a lot less so. The other thing that they did with this valve is they created a larger sealing area. So that's in between the diaphragm and the valve body. Again, we're dealing with chemicals that tend to salt out. So having a larger sealing area allows for more solids to pass through, which you want. You don't want to have to service that valve. The other thing I should definitely mention is that these are available with ProFlare ends. So you can see in the center photo here, we have it with ProFlare ends. The base comes tapped, right, with 316 tappings so that you can mount this valve right to a panel, mount it to a wall, etc. The top spring adjustment, right? Of course, the way these back pressure valves work is by spring tension, right? The spring tension is what sets that pressure level or relief point is by adjusting that spring tension. And so to do that, you just pop off the top cap, and there's an Allen key adjustment in there with a set nut. Also, we can supply this valve with a gauge and guard, and it's very it's sleek and stylish in a Swiss way. Now, you could see the little gauge here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's not some big cumbersome gauge, and you can have this installed right onto the valve. And now very easily you're able to dial in the pressure exactly where you want it to be because you can see the gauge right there on the valve. The final benefit, and this makes it really easy, and you could call us right away with your orders, is that the union nut connection and the face-to-face are the exact same as the competitor. So if you have one of the competitor's valves and you're not so happy, you want to give this one a try, you could take it out of the line. You just simply disconnect your union nuts, put in this GF586 sustaining valve, thread back up your union nuts, and away you go. There's no piping that needs to change. Unless, of course, you're changing to the ProFlare system, which I, of course, would recommend. So that's it. Really quickly, from ProLine Fittings, we have a lot of products available in water and wastewater treatment, from PVC CPVC, polypropylene, PVDF, ECTFE, or HALAR, lots of different thermoplastics depending on the chemical and the application, including up to dual containment. We do everything from calibration columns to gauge guards, injection quills. We have a line of pumps as well, both peristaltic and solenoid-driven pumps. We do flow level sensing and controls. Of course, we saw that slide, the presentation from GF on the Flowtramag. We have all of your different analysis, pH, ORP, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, etc. We have this cool valve here, actually. I really like this one. It's kind of in a different vein, but this is a wastewater, this is a wastewater valve from Schuster Systems. It combines a ball check valve and a 90-degree bend. So it's really ideal for maximizing your footprint in a waste plant application, particularly good with sewage lift stations. We've been seeing a lot of activity on that valve lately. It's a new patented product. We have products from Trumbull Manufacturing, mud valves, hydrostatic tank pressure relief valves, and valve adaptation. So we can, if you have a valve in a spot within your water plant that's in a confined space, we've got mitered gears and knuckles and all kinds of ways to get you from that valve to an operator with all different types of offsets so that you never have to enter a confined space again and then operate that valve manually. So we do all those custom valve adaptations and controls. We have a FRP panel type modular water tank, which is pretty cool. If any of you out there are either engineers or operators in a remote area, you need to have water storage. You can see this bottom left corner here. This is a modular tank that's made from FRP panels, fiberglass panels. And essentially the tank gets shipped to you on a pallet and you bolt it together on site. NSF approved. You can get them insulated for northern climates, and you get 100-year plus life out of these things. There's no corrosion. It's all fiberglass. Also, no bacteria growth because it has a mirror finish. Load-rated composite access products. You can see up here. We work with Trumbull. They manufacture an H25 load-rated manhole frame and cover. So we've been providing those. They're also road authority approved. And then another product is our mechanical seals and flange isolation kits. So lots of things to keep your water clean and safe and help with the operations of your water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and even your linear distribution collection systems. And that is all. And I probably ran over a little bit. That's okay.
And we're back.
We're back.
All right. That was a fun talk, and it was great that we had some questions during. I apologize again for interrupting you, but I'm in live streams. That's how I operate. I see the question, I want it answered.
You want it answered now? No, it's all good. I couldn't see anything other than my presentation, so I couldn't see the question. Otherwise, I would have stopped myself. So I'm glad you did interrupt me.
Excellent. I didn't want to break your flow, but you had. But it was great. Great presentations today. Great content that we put together. I really enjoyed the discussion panel earlier today. We've been going, Justin, for 3 hours and 20 minutes now. So this has been quite a live stream.
Oh, it's great. I mean, we've got between Ford, where are we at? George Fisher, Proline Fittings, Walkerton Clean Water Center, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at $6,000 for the Clean Water Education Foundation. All of that money is going to go back towards operator training, initiatives for clean water across Canada. So it's really awesome. I think this is a great event. I think there's a lot of things we can do to make it better. And so I encourage feedback. You know, if anybody that was watching today has feedback on maybe any of the presentations or what you might like to see in future events, by all means, reach out to me or Mark and let us know, because we'd love to get your feedback on that.
Always. Feedback is always appreciated, and it's how we grow.
Hmm.
But I think, to try to blend what we do in the waterworks industry with the World Water Day and kind of do a little bit of charity, and I really enjoy doing these things, and all that it costs me is the time to hang out with my waterworks buddies like you, and all our friends at Ford, George Fisher, and the Walkerton Clean Water Center. So that's a good time. That's a good time for me.
Yeah,
I do
it's-
want I do want to remind our audience. So if you're watching right now, another cool thing that we do here with this event is, if you were watching, you can get an on-the-job training certificate, right?
Yes, on-the-job training certificate is correct.
Okay, so to get that training certificate, I'm scrolling at the bottom of the screen the email address that you need to reach out to. So it's socialmedia@prolinefittings.com. So you will be reaching out directly to me, and we are going to make you an actual certificate. It's going to be a PDF certificate that we're going to be sending to you. So please, if you need this training certificate, please reach out to me at socialmedia@prolinefittings.com.
And I actually, during the presentations, Mark, I got an email from a delegate who mentioned that how do we ensure that people are attending if the presenter didn't ask via chat who was there? And so that's a good question, and we'll have to think about that. I mean, it's a charity event, and we're going off the honor system that folks are there that registered, that that are receiving the OJT certificate. But maybe there's a way we can sort of have a double redundant kind of confirmation that folks are there, that they have to participate in something, maybe in a future event. So anyway, it was good. I appreciate this feedback and this email I received during the presentation today. We're gonna think about that, on how we can improve.
Also, I have my ways of knowing. So
Okay, so you've got scrying ball over there, do you, Mark?
I know. So if
Okay.
anyone if anyone would if anyone would take this awesome charity event and and tell a lie about it, I will know. So trust me, I will know. I have my ways of knowing who was listening and who wasn't. So don't worry about it. We got
This
you.
is
We
good.
got
Well, maybe I'll forward this email over to you, and we can.
It is a good question, though, but no, absolutely. We do appreciate everybody that took the time to watch today. Let's see, we do have another comment here. Oh, Denis Blais says, "I'm here, no worries."
Okay.
And
Right on, Denny.
I didn't see your avatar there, Denis, so I flashed that on the screen a little bit quickly. Okay. The other thing that we need to do before, because we are kind of over time, we're pushing the very limit of the time that we said we would be doing this for. We need to give away a $250 Amazon gift card.
We do.
Okay, so do you want to do that right now?
Maybe I jumped the gun on the drum roll there.
Well, I do have to do my random. So in order to be eligible to win this gift card, we ask you to register, pre-register to the event. So if you are registered and I have your name here on my list, then you are eligible to win a gift card. So I will run a randomizer through my Excel spreadsheet.
Did you write the code for that?
I did. I wrote I wrote it at the same time that I wrote the code that helps me check who watches us live. It's
using Fortran.
Yeah, I'm a hacker on my spare time, but no, I just do a simple randomization here in Excel, and the winner. All right, so the winner, and I will write it out here on a banner. Just one moment.
It's a big deal.
All right, so the winner is Peter Manziuk. Peter Manziuk.
Peter Manziuk. Peter Manziuk. Where is Peter? Ah, Urban Systems. Cool.
There we go. And
Right
I'm
on,
already
an engineer. Like
yes,
it.
excellent. And I'm already getting emails for your Marlon. Thank you. I just got your email, and thank you for your questions, Marlon. I really appreciate it. But yeah, we will expect those. I'm going to give everyone a chance to email me over the next couple of days, and probably sometime next week I'll start sending out those certificates. Peter Manziuk, I will throw your name up on the screen here. So congratulations, you are the winner of the $250 Amazon giveaway.
No, it doesn't have to be Amazon though, right? Is that correct?
I mean, it's if you have another suggestion for a gift card that's easily purchasable and doesn't give us too much trouble, then absolutely we will accommodate that.
Yeah. Right on.
All right, so I will be in touch with you, Peter. But congratulations, and congratulations to you, Justin, for running a great show today. Thank you so much for putting on this event and hosting. It was a lot of fun. It was always a lot of fun to do some live streaming, and check out our YouTube channel, Proline Fittings YouTube channel. We have lots of content that we do there. Justin does another podcast, I guess we can call it, called the Clean Water Series. So it's on there as well. And we do appreciate your support with likes, shares, subscribe, all the social media things. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, give us a follow. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe, and we appreciate your support.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Thank you for all of your help putting this together. We couldn't have done it without you. And I do have to say thank you one more time to all of our sponsors, Platinum sponsor, Ford Meter Box, and Silver sponsors, the Walkerton Clean Water Center, Proline Fittings, and George Fisher Piping Systems. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors today. And thank you to everyone that stuck around and paid attention. I mentioned it in my little preamble there. Again, without you being here, being a part of this, we wouldn't have our corporate sponsors. We wouldn't have $6,000 to spend back into clean water initiatives. So thank you so much for everyone being in attendance today.
All right. And I guess the only thing left to say is we will catch you next year.
Indeed.
Have a great day, everybody.